Good evening. If I could have everybody's attention, just a brief announcement. The meeting was supposed to start 2 minutes ago. I'm trying to give, you probably noticed there's a long line in the hall. I'm trying to give those people a chance to get in, and we're going to run out of seats, and so then they're going to have to go down to the 2 overflow areas. So that's why we're not started yet. I'm trying to let as many people as possible get in. Once more, we have people coming in that are looking for a seat. If you have a seat beside you, would you raise your hand or maybe tighten up, move over a seat? Yeah. Well, act like you like each other and slide in really close together.
one there, and one in front. No, it's only one. One there and one in front. Just one. Just one.
Once again, the fire chief's trying to figure out when we're full, because we have to follow fire marshal rules. If you have a seat beside you, please raise your hand. Seat 2, thank you. Okay, another quick update. We are full to capacity here, and so we're going to give the people that are still in line a couple minutes to get downstairs to the 2 overflow areas. We don't want anybody to be excluded. So maybe at 5:46. Okay, it is 5:46, and we'll make that. So I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I want to just give you a little bit of a rundown of what to expect so that you're well prepared. We are going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:47 on August 23rd. And then we are going to have, I'll call the roll so you know who's here. And then we're going to have a staff report on the one item at hand so that you know where the staff stands. That might help you in your questions. And then we will open it up for public comment. And I have a couple people who want to speak, and I'll call you. This also goes to the people downstairs in both overflow rooms. I'm going to call 3 people at a time. So if you're downstairs, just make your way up. In the very front row, for those of you that can't see it, of the chambers, we have some reserved seating, and that's for you. The people that are waiting to speak, you can come sit in this reserved seating. We want to give everybody a chance to speak. You will have 3 minutes to talk only about this subject. We're dealing with one subject tonight. So if you would limit your comments to that, and please limit it to 3 minutes, because you can see these guys already looking at me. If you go more than 3 minutes, David's going to take a hook to To my neck. No, well, I want to be respectful for everybody here. So I'm asking you to do the same and not take a minute of somebody else's time. At 3 minutes, I'm going to inform you that your time is up. If you can do it in 30 seconds, do that. But we are glad you're here and have the opportunity to participate in your government. Okay. Everybody that wanted to speak has already filled out a public comment card. Just in case you haven't, there's cards in the back. And we will go ahead. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Krista, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Reinhardt.
Here.
Mr. Robbins. Mr. Santiago.
Here.
Mr. Dempsey.
Here.
Mr. Johansson.
Here.
Mr. Kent.
Here.
Mr. Brower.
Here. So we will start with Attorney Paulo. You're going to give a report from staff on the item, and then we'll go into public participation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. Good evening. My name is Paulo Soria, Senior Assistant County Attorney. So last week, council directed this office to explore, appealing or objecting to the minor air construction permit that was issued by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for the Petroleum bulk station and terminal on 874 Hull Road. Because we didn't have information at that time, you directed us to set up this special meeting, notice the public, and provide you with options for further direction. So this meeting is limited, what you directed staff to do, which is on whether or not to challenge the minor air construction permit. We looked at the minor air construction permit. It was issued August 1st, 2023, and determined, unfortunately, that Volusia County is unable to challenge or appeal that final permit due to a lack of standing. So what's standing? Generally, for the non-lawyers, standing is a party's right to challenge the conduct of another person in court. So we're talking about in the courtroom. So under the Administrative Procedures Act, which is what this permit is subject to, only parties to the underlying order may appeal the order for judicial review. They can appeal to a district court of appeal judge. So because the county was not a party to the matter below, which we're going to call the lower tribunal, it is not a party to appeal the final order in court. So, just to get to the question, so how does one obtain standing? There is a brief explanation in the memorandum. It talks about the county obtaining standing, but it really applies to any other person who wishes to challenge the permit. So it needs to be final agency action. So, right now we've got a final air permit, that supposedly went through all of the procedures. And that the agency itself, which is the Department of Environmental Protection, is subject to the Administrative Procedures Act. So that's, number two. The appellant, in which case the party, was a party to the action in which it seeks to appeal. So that basically means it needed to have engaged at the lower level. And also the county or whoever appellant needs to demonstrate that they were adversely affected by the action. So, we looked at all of these, we looked at the relevant case law, and as we said, based on the notice to issue the draft air permit, which was published on July 7th, 2023, any entity who would have had to challenge that needed to have done so by a timely petition for an administrative hearing before an administrative law judge or the Division of Administrative Hearing. And they had needed to have done that within 14 days of the notice. Notice was issued on July 7th, 2023, but we'll get into some of those discussions later. I apologize. So because no entity, as far as we can tell, filed a timely petition within the 14-day time frame, to request administrative determination, but to further intervene into the proceeding, then, as far as we can tell, there are no other identified parties in the final order. So as noticed in the memorandum, if the county actually did participate, it would have to demonstrate that the proposal, as in the bulk air terminal, does not meet the very technical specifications of the Florida Administrative Code. And that has to do with essentially air pollution standards. So that's a very technical review. It's just looking at air emissions. It doesn't take into account some of the traffic concerns, for example. It doesn't take into account, wetlands or other environmental impacts. It is solely focused on that air permit. So that's kind of a very technical challenge to do. So we have been in contact with the city of Ormond Beach, and as of the date of the memo I provided you on Monday and today, and as far as we're aware, the city has not filed an appeal. And once again, we're talking about an appeal before the District Court of Appeals. And as your staff mentioned below, the use, which is this industrial use, is allowed by right in the county's current I-2 heavy industrial zoning district. It is the most intense zoning district that we have. It does not require a rezoning action by county council. That's usually what you've seen. However, the proposal is subject to review and compliance with the county's land development code. And I want to stress this: we have not received a formal application or permit for the use. There's been some pre-application meetings for is the use allowable by right, but there's nothing for that county staff has reviewed to determine if they meet all of the criteria and characteristics in the land development code. So that's essentially, it's very brief. So as far as the question you asked us to research, can we appeal this final order? Unfortunately, due to a lack of standing, the county's unable to. Mike, do you have anything else there?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if it's okay. First of all, thank you, Paulo, for all your time on this. I really appreciate it. One thing I wanted to relay, this afternoon I was contacted by the city attorney for Ormond Beach about some of the things that they're looking at with regards to this permit. And one option could be, if so directed, is that, and it's similar to what the city attorney has been authorized to do by the city commission, is whether you would want me to be authorized to review whether there exists a basis to send a letter to FDEP on what the question of whether or not there was sufficient notice for the permit. I can't say there is a basis at this time, but we would need to look at it. I know that's what the city is doing as well. If we didn't feel there was a basis, would not send it, but knowing that with the amount of time we have, if this office could be authorized, we could do so. And the sensitivity to it and wanting to be able to review it is just that we don't want to be in a situation where we file something that's deemed to be frivolous and whoever sends it is subject to sanctions for sending it to the agency, because this is involving a permit. So that is an option if council so chose.
Thank you. Paulo, you're done?
Yes, unless you have any other questions.
I'm positive, and I'll let the public know, that what you just said, everybody up here is going to have questions. If I open it up to questions, we might not get to the public. So I'd like to open it up to the public first, if that's all right.
Mr. Chairman, I may?
Okay, David Santiago.
The reason, because I don't think we're in proper posture yet. That's the only reason I want to ask a question. Can we have staff give us additional information as to how did we get here today? Some historical analysis on the property itself. What occurred, why we're here.
Yeah. Well, and that's the questions that we're all going to have if y'all want to start that now.
But Mr. Chairman, the reason why, because it could be helpful to the public when they go to share their thoughts with us. That's the only reason I asked for it. Let's give you all the information you need, the facts that we have, and you formulate your opinions based on that.
Okay. Do you want to start?
Well, that's my question. Can someone give us a synopsis of how did we get here with this land, with this zoning entitlement today that allowed this?
I'll turn it over to Clay Irvin.
Good evening, Clay Irvin, Director of Growth and Resource Management. The subject property went through a land use and zoning amendment in 2006. That was initiated by Glenn Storch, who is a land use attorney representing the Florida East Coast Railroad. Florida East Coast Railroad acquired the property from the Flagler Development Corporation. Just for clarification, Flagler Development Corporation is the development arm of the Florida East Coast Railroad. So it's basically just a transfer from one corporate entity to another corporate entity that are all in the same house. At that time, it had been utilized as a rinker site, CMEX site. And it was basically an aggregate area where trains would drop off all the aggregates used in asphalt batching and concrete manufacturing, and then distribute it out. It was also, as you can see through some of the documentation that's been provided, it has not been operating since 2006, 2007. They did process a site plan through Volusia County in 2007 to try and expand that use, but it never was taken to fruition, primarily due to the recession that we were facing and the lack of demand for cement and asphalt. So basically, the property has been sitting still since that time. In June of 2022, Avid Group, which is an engineering group representing the owner of the gas terminal, came and set up appointments with both the City of Ormond Beach and with Volusia County. City of Ormond Beach, their primary question was provision of utilities and annexation. Typically what you see is that when a city requires annexation, or excuse me, requires you connect to their utilities, they require annexation. And what they requested from Volusia County was basically, we're coming in with this fuel storage and transfer station. Is this a permitted use in the I-2 zoning? And what are the processes that are required for it? Our staff met with them, went over those standards, and we have not heard anything back. As Mr. Soria referenced, we have not received any formal applications at all in the year since we've met with them. As of Friday, a week ago, we did receive a call from one of their consultants to try and set up for the methodology for the traffic impact assessment that is required. And so that's really where we are in the process with this property.
Nobody has a question to that? I'd like to ask just one, and then we can move on. I'm struggling with this. We don't have standing. And I hear the minor, this is from the letter from Michael Dyer, County Attorney. The minor air construction permit was issued on August 1st. At a minimum, standing would require a party to have challenged a permit before issuance. How does that work? How is that legal if we were never made aware that there was a permit requested? Did we not get a notification that there was a permit?
The notice was published in the Hometown News.
Was the county aware of it? Was the county aware of that?
We don't monitor those, we don't typically monitor the notices of other government entities.
So the DEP is not required to tell us, because to have standing, if we do nothing, we have no standing. They should be required to tell us that there's a permit going in. They're not?
That is a question for the state agencies and the state legislature. They're the ones who dictate
But I'm
the rule.
asking our staff, did we get any notification of that permit other than the Hometown News?
Of the permit, as far as I'm aware, the only time we've learned about it was through the Hometown News application. And I'm talking specifically about the air permit.
Right. Okay, anybody else?
One thing.
Yes, sir, David Santiago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not a question, but Mike, and I think you mentioned it in your away from Mike. Mike, I think you mentioned in your comment.
Could I just clarify? I was talking with George. I want to clarify that to the question of did we have knowledge of a permit for this minor air construction permit? None of us were aware of it, and I think what I was saying before was with the conversation with the city is we take a look and see what the sufficiency of the notice is. I can't give an answer on that right now. I don't know, but in an appeal, which was how this was raised last week, you have to be a party below. You would have had to have challenged it before or go for an administrative law judge. We don't have that here. Neither did the city. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to kind of share a little bit on what Mike had said earlier. My recollection from my state days, and I may be wrong on this, but I want to just put it on for the record, is that if we find, historically what I've remembered is that if an applicant did not follow the proper notice period or procedures for a state permit such as DEP, and it's found to have not followed that, the objection period remained open at that point indefinitely for someone to appeal to it. So that's my recollection. So I'm hopeful that if that's the case, we can definitely pursue that route because the time period would not expire.
That's your understanding?
That could be one outcome. We want to look at it for you, obviously, but that could be one outcome, yes.
I'm still, what I would like to know at the end of this is how do we prevent this from happening again? If we don't have standing, if we haven't challenged something, but we're never given a notice that there's something we may have to challenge, how does government function like that? I don't understand. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, I'm going to begin calling people from the public. Again, I'll call, how many, can you see how many seats say reserved? There's 5. I'm going to call 5 and because we got a lot of people that want to speak. Just come down, sit here. When you get to the podium, please make sure that the microphone is near your mouth because we want to hear you, and this is recorded for all times. And the podium also goes up and down to adjust for height if you need that, and staff can help you with that if necessary. So the first person I call can just go right to the podium. Everybody else just use the reserve seats. And we're doing this because there's a lot of people downstairs that have also handed in cards. John Leslie, Robin Magliora, Lindsay Pate, and Ilana Kraft.
Mr. Chairman, question?
Yes, sir.
Just as an expectation setter, you're giving everybody 3 minutes tonight, and how many do you have right now?
39.
38. 39?
We have one more.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And just also one other announcement, don't start his time yet. When you come up, you don't have to give your full address for safety reasons. Please stop the clock, and I want to give him his full 3 minutes. Just tell us what area of the county that you're in, Ormond, Daytona, whatever, just so your representative knows. And your name.
I did just want to, before he does start, let everybody know that your clock is on this screen, and it will beep if your time is up. It also goes to yellow and to red once you're getting close to your time.
Okay, all right. Can I get a restart? All right.
A little sensitive.
Okay, my name is Jason Leslie, former mayor of Ormond Beach. All right, it says enough there. I had a question though, just real quick though. I mean, is this a due diligence period? That's to Michael over there. Is that what they're doing? A due diligence? Because I don't understand. You know, my background is real estate, and I have a real estate license. And I own a building in Daytona Beach. And one of the uses, I have many uses I can do on it because it's zoned for all these different things. And I remember about 2 years ago, I was going to do motorcycle sales, which I'm zoned for. And I went to the city hall, and when I talked to people over in the zoning, they said, well, you have to submit plans and things like that, and we have to approve it before we can even move forward. And I'm already zoned for this. So I'm saying to myself, like, well, how did something like this happen, you know, where nobody even knows? I mean, we're talking, motorcycle sales. I mean, motorcycle sales isn't going to really affect anybody, right? But we're talking 20 millions of gallons of fuel. And my neighborhood's gone, you know, if something were to happen. So I'm just trying to just figure this whole thing out. But I do have maybe a solution if we have no other avenues to suggest to the council, and maybe you guys can make a motion on that tonight. And I talked to State Representative Tom Leak about it today, and he also thought that it was a good idea, suggestion to do. He's away in California, so he couldn't be here. Is that, you know, maybe get the county employees and Ormond Beach employees to get together and see if they can do an alternative plan of maybe finding another property somewhere that would be more suitable instead of the property where it's at now, because we built a lot of residential neighborhoods around there and things like that, and a lot of things have changed over the years, and I thought that was a good suggestion. So that's all I have to say. I don't want to take up any more of time, but I just hope that maybe that we can at least do a motion like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Magliera.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rob Magliora, and I just want to let you know that when I found out about the soup terminal, I decided to start a Facebook page and mobilize citizens of Ormond Beach against this. I'm a retired Southeast Florida firefighter. I know what happens with these facilities. I know what happens at train accidents when they derail. I know what happens when fuel tanks explode, and I know what happens when those tankers on those roads 180 day take out a family coming home. I've worked the calls. I've been in the gear doing it. And I just want to say that I'm going to quote COO Mike Benedito of Belvedere Terminals on his official statement. And the end of it, he says, and in the unlikely event that there's an emergency, we will be fully prepared. No, they'll be sitting in their seats in St. Petersburg at their desk. The citizens of Ormond Beach Fire Department, and Volusia County Fire Rescue will be dealing with this. We don't have the resources. We don't have the hospital capability to handle an MCI incident. They're backed up now. We don't have the resources. Three days ago in Indonesia, a similar facility had a fuel fire. It took 253 firefighters, 52 fire engines, and multiple hours to extinguish it. It went through the town, 19 are dead, and 2 are still missing. So you tell me how the city of Ormond Beach, Volusia County Fire Rescue, and the citizens of Ormond Beach are going to handle a fuel fire at this facility, a train derailment. This doesn't just affect Ormond Beach. These trains are going through all of Volusia County, every single one of yours district. These tracks run through your counties. It is your responsibility. You were voted in to take care of your constituents, the people that put you in office. It's your job to keep them safe. It's your job to find a way to stop this from going in. It's an inappropriate facility, an inappropriate area to put in. There are neighborhoods. There's our airport. There's 500-600 elderly people living right across the street. There's a dance studio in a 2-story building that's literally across the road that houses 150 to 200 children during the week taking dance lessons. Do you want to be the ones looking them in the eye saying, sorry, we couldn't do anything? Do you want it to be your family that's at the sports facility playing softball or baseball, or your family that's driving down the road and gets taken out by a tanker? And also, I'm running out of time. There is no funding from FDOT to do that interchange.
Okay. Lindsay Pate will be next. I'm also going to call Fran Canfield, wherever she is, if she wants to come take a seat down here, and Nancy Bates.
Lindsay Pate, proud Ormond Beach resident. This is the classified ad published in the Hometown News on July 7th, 2023, regarding the intent to issue the air permit. We did not receive this paper in our neighborhood. In fact, most of our neighborhood, and we are less than a half a mile away from this site. How many of you received this paper? How does this qualify as a public notice? It's not even archived online. It's not publicly owned, and it's not operated as a public paper. In fact, if you want it, you have to call and ask for it. That is not public notification. We should have received mailers, just like we do with our property taxes. This city did know about this a year ago. As of June 22nd, 2022, many of them knew. It seems like the public did not. Over the last 5 days, I have hand-delivered petitions to hundreds of homes and businesses who will be directly impacted by this terminal. Most of those businesses are less than a few hundred feet away from those terminals and rails. It is clear where the city of Ormond Beach stands. Very clear. On August 1st, the commissioners unanimously voted to change the zoning from light industrial to heavy industrial, even though this project has not been approved and it's not even within their jurisdiction. I feel like they're setting all of the pieces in place to checkmate us. You should find that worrisome, but you do have the power to stop this nonsense now. Say no when that application slides across your desks. Please think of a way to stop it. Think of the current property owners. The fuel depot is going to act in the best interest of itself. County commissioners, your job is to act on behalf of ours, the citizens. And if you don't act on our behalf, I feel like it's negligent. Do you trust this oil business to regulate itself by standards set by their own interest groups? If so, then it's time to let citizens to monitor taxes, traffic violations, and crimes. No one would take advantage of that, right? We're all going to be honest. If the depot is built, myself and others will look into filing a class action lawsuit for the impending health concerns and issues, loss of property value, the lower quality of life. I'll be sending every single one of you every EPA study and medical journal that shows this project is negligent and dangerous. The current mayor and all the past and present commissioners knew back then, yet here we are. Mr. Dyer, Mr. Kent, Mr. Johansson, Mr. Robbins, Mr. Santiago, Mr. Dempsey, Mr. Reckenwald, Mr. Reinhardt. Fight for this as if it's going in your backyard, because it's going in mine, and I have 3 children to raise. There is no data that shows lower fuel prices because of the location of the fuel depot. If that's the case, gas would be significantly cheaper in cities like Jacksonville. The EPA data does show that there'll be imminent and irrepressible harm to the health of these community members, the environment, the animals, and the quality of life of the surrounding areas. Our residences, children's sports complexes, airport, and businesses have already been established here for many years. We are already here, and we did not ask to live next to a toxic fuel depot. We're not heavy industrial, and we're not going to be.
Thank you. You must be Alana Kraft, and then I'm going to call Douglas Kinney if you want to come get your seat, and Arthur from Ormond Beach. Armstrong, I'm sorry. It's an easy one. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elena Kraft. I live in Ormond Lakes, just 0.8 miles from the proposed fuel farm. I am here first and foremost as a concerned mother, and secondly as a public health professional advocating for the health and well-being of my community. For the past week, which seems like an eternity now, we have been trying to understand how our city and county representatives, who proclaim they have our best interest in mind, managed to sell us out to a fuel farm. We looked through meeting minutes. We tried to decipher air permits. We looked at zoning laws and other regulations. We looked everywhere for the public notice and couldn't find it. What we did find was that while nobody, and I mean nobody, was looking, the groundwork was being laid for a massive fuel farm to be built in the middle of our beloved town of Ormond Beach. While city and county planners knew about the proposed fuel farm for more than a year, they kept the ones who will be directly affected by this in complete darkness, hiding behind the fact that this property is zoned heavy industrial by the county. While this may very well be the case on paper, I am here to make it clear that this area is not heavy industrial by any stretch of the imagination. I put together this map that I gave everybody here, which shows the densely populated area surrounding this so-called heavy industrial piece of land. As you can see, there are 5,000 residents within a 2-mile radius, literally in the crosshairs of this massive fuel terminal. You heard that right, more than 5,000 residents and thousands more outside of the 2-mile radius who were here long before Belvedere Terminals decided that we would be a convenient location for them. They will be subjected to the life-changing adverse impact of living right next to an industrial fuel farm. And to add insult to injury, the proposed fuel farm will be less than 0.3 miles from the beautiful Ormond Beach Sports Complex, as well as where thousands of children and their families visit every year. It will be less than half a mile from the airport that has 119,000 flight operations annually, including from student pilots. According to the EPA, fuel tanks release harmful chemicals into the air, which can lead to numerous health problems. Some fuel tank emissions, such as benzene, are known to cause cancer. In the final air permit, the Department of Environmental Protection puts the burden of proof on local residents to file complaints regarding odors and visible emissions. Residents will be left to wonder every day of their lives what they're breathing, whether Belvedere is adhering to air emission regulations, whether their health and the health of the children are being impacted by the air that they breathe. When something like this life-changing is being planned, you alert the public, and most importantly, you engage the public. In talking to hundreds of people in the last week, I am yet to find a single local resident who supports the fuel farm. I hope that tonight, councilmen, you won't break that streak. And I'm happy and honored to report that as of this afternoon, we have 12,000 people who have signed a petition opposing this fuel farm. We will not be gaslighted, we will not be manipulated, and we will not back down.
Thank you. Fran Canfield, and then I'm going to call Barbara Bonarigio to come take your seat up front. Fran, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It said that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and as I'm speaking, I'd like you to see this.
We have that. Yes.
This is basically trout trucks.
You got to speak into the microphone, please. They'll be able to see you on the screen above my head.
Okay. There, he's holding it up. Okay. Just as a footnote to what this young lady just said as far as health, there is a community, it's called South, where is it? South Oregon, yes, and they have, the American Lung Association has formed a coalition with them because of the sudden, remarkable increase of cancers. Now, I think it's a fair assumption by the numbers of constituents here tonight, the passion we all have for this proposed project to be constructed in the core of over 5,000 residents, businesses, and schools. What is decided by this commission will not only affect the present future of us, but future generations to come. We understand presently there are no permit applications presented to the county. However, there is clear documentation that the city of Ormond Beach and the county were in fact aware of this project back in 2022. There are more reasons why this project needs to be relocated to an unpopulated area than positive ones. The revenue that will come from this project can in no way outweigh the lives and wildlife and our waterways that potentially can be lost. As constituents, we are not asking you to consider a decision going forward, but demand that you do your due diligence and stand up for us legally and morally. Thank you.
Next will be Nancy Bates, and then if Karen Delisle would come and take your seat down front. Nancy?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am a resident of Bear Creek, the 600 plus homes of retirees, and I'm here to talk to you specifically about how that fuel tank will affect us. As we are retirees, we've lived through the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and of course, the 60s. And so we don't scare very easily. However, the thought of having the Belvedere fuel tanks with 20 million gallons of fuel in our backyard scares the bejesus out of us. We are seeking your assistance. We need your help. Bear Creek is a beautiful community, but we sit in the direct line of fire should there be an accident. I don't care what the safety concerns are. There's going to be an accident. We've lived long enough to know there is nothing that is absolute, and there is a good possibility that something's going to happen, which means we're wiped out. Now, I know because we're old, people think we should die, but by God, I'm not ready to go yet. And I am absolutely willing to fight. But we do know that if there is an accident and there are children in the complex and the fire department and the EMTs and all of the people who come to our rescue have a choice to make between coming to Bear Creek and saving the old people or going to save the children, I know damn well where they'll go, and that's where they should go, is to the children. So we will be living every day under the thought of today could be the day that it's all over. Now, I ask each one of you, would you want your parents living in the kill zone? And if the answer to that is hell no, then by God, do something to help us. Thank you.
Douglas Kenny will be next, and if Debbie Cotton would come take her seat in the reserve section.
Hi, Douglas Kenny, Ormond Beach since 1994. I got a real easy question. A lot of good information's been given out, okay? It's helped me to understand what's going on, that nobody knew what was going on. And so I would like to ask each one of the people up here, is there anyone up here, commissioners, staff, in favor of this fuel farm? Raise your hand if you're in favor of it. Okay, good. So with that, it means we got the best group of people to take care of this. The lawyers, George, Suzanne, everybody here is in agreement. So this is one thing. It should be nonpartisan. It's for the citizens of Ormond Beach. Let's get it done.
Next will be Arthur Armstrong, followed by, well, not followed by, but if Merrick Brunker would come and take your seat down front. Mr. Armstrong.
Good evening. I live in Ormond Beach. With that in mind, I stand here opposing 100% this $20 million. I won't call it a farm because a farm is a good thing. It's not a farm. It's a transfer station. It's ugly, dirty. Where I'm from originally 25 years ago, in a town up in Massachusetts, I was on a board just like this for 10 years, okay? I fought a company that does business in this state already, you know, as they did up in Massachusetts. With that in mind, it took $15 million for our community to fight Clean Harbors, okay, which they're in this state to operate in. They wanted to put up similar to what this is proposed, but on the top of it was an incinerator that would burn everything demand except for hazardous waste. I mean, not hazardous waste, nuclear waste. All right. With that, we had a tank farm. Tank farm was put in there before World War II, and the purpose it was put in there was for World War II. It had a tank farm much bigger than this proposal. We had problems since I was a kid with leakage problems in that tank farm. We had an explosion in that tank farm during that time. Right? I see the makings of what I lived with for a long time up north, not here. I see a community like Bear Creek, all senior citizens, right next to an airport that's looking to expand. They say no expansion, but it's expansion when you want to put a 1,000-foot track in. With that in mind, there's going to be a problem. Not if, it's when one of those planes come down. We've already had a plane go by, lost its door, came down, almost killed a lady in her backyard. Okay? Not in Bear Creek, but over in Volusia County area. I think you all probably know that. That is only a fraction of what could happen if one of these planes come down. We have planes that go through there that can't even speak English. They can't even speak English. The tower has a problem with them communicating to come in. So when they go on a solo, when it's time for them to go on a solo, they've had problems with that. I don't want them to end up in that new facility, because that'll wipe out the community, it'll wipe out all of Route 1. You won't be able to get around. I had a very good conversation today with the fire department, Volusia County Fire Department. Gentleman, phenomenal. We talked back and forth, okay? He sees, and I see, right now, we have a real big deficiency for this to happen. I know we're going to run out of time, so we're going to kind of get it sweet. I oppose it. With my experience in this hazardous waste field, I believe a no is the only way to go. And one quick thing, you all are going to be up for re-election. I don't want to sound a threat, but there's more people that are going to vote you out than you vote you in if you don't put your due diligence in this program and make it happen, because right now it's being stuck to us, and we're not going to take it. We've taken too much. There's over 3,000 people that live in that community area.
Thank you. Next will be Barbara Bonarigo, and if Anthony I think it's Ionlano, would come and take your seat up front, please.
Well, gentlemen of the County Council, I'm Barbara Bonarigo, and I live in Ormond Beach for the past 24 years. Our community has seen its fair share of changes over the years, from pink strip bars to outlaw motorcycle clubs, and now discussions about fuel farms. It's evident that our landscape evolves. But what remains constant is the need for better communication and coordination in our decision making. When decisions are made in isolation, without proper coordination, it can lead to unexpected consequences. The permit process should be meticulously examined. We've learned from history that it's vital for all parts of our community to be on the same page. As we gaze into our future, let's carry this lesson with us. We're not here to oppose progress or new businesses. Instead, we want to ensure that growth aligns with our community's values and character. To sum it up, let's collaborate to create a more transparent and coordinated process where everyone knows what's happening. This way, we can build a future that respects our heritage while embracing new opportunities. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a nice evening.
Next will be Karen Delisle, and if Chris Ingalls would come take your seat.
Good evening. My name is Karen Delisle, and I live in Ormond Beach. I am here to present you my thoughts about the proposed Belvedere Fuel Depot, and I thank you for the opportunity. The proposed project is unsafe. Unsafe for our residents in Bear Creek, Ormond Lakes, Ormond Grand, the village of Pine Run and beyond. It is unsafe for the large Ormond Beach recreational sports complex with playground for children, including a disabled children's playground and a dancing school. The businesses on US 1, the Ormond Airport, which is the busiest small airport in the state of Florida, with an average of 264 flights per day based on 2022 statistics. The Ormond Airport also accommodates 2 flight training schools. The US 1 and I-95 interchange is already known to be dangerous, especially for tractor-trailer trucks. And according to the State of Florida Department of Transportation, you must have the funding to remodel an interchange 2 years before you do the work, and there is no funding set aside at this point. So you're going to put 165, add 9 more, trucks hauling fuel on our roads every day. That is fuelish. It's unsafe for our environment. The soil the Tomoka River, our air, our older population, our parents, our children, our grandchildren. A business deal made in 2006, 17 years ago, nearly a generation, is not a good business deal in 2023. The proposed site looked very different 17 years ago. Before homes, businesses, a playground, a sports complex, a dancing school, and a busy airport, not even to mention Bike Week. Thank you.
Next will be Debbie Cotton, and if Alan Cohen would come take his seat up front.
Good evening, Chairman Brower, County Council members. Oh, I don't usually get nervous speaking in front of people, but I'm a little nervous. My name's Debbie Cotton. I'm the CEO and President of the Ormond Beach Chamber of Commerce. First and foremost, I want to thank you for holding this special meeting tonight to allow the citizens of this community to be heard and voice their concerns. We really appreciate that. We appreciate, hopefully, everything you're going to do to stop this project moving forward. The Ormond Beach Chamber represents about 650 businesses, along with their employees and their families in Ormond Beach and Volusia County. And on behalf of our board of directors, we strongly oppose this development. This area is the gateway into Ormond Beach and Volusia County from I-95 and serves as the pathway to connecting residents, businesses, and visitors to our community. We have many concerns. You've heard just the tip of them tonight. However, due to time constraints, I'll just touch on a couple. Let's talk about the traffic disruption. The anticipated rise in fuel tanker traffic on a pivotal road like US 1 poses a direct threat of potential accidents. Not only does this raise safety concerns for our motorists and our pedestrians, but any disruption or closure due to accidents could impede local commerce, affecting businesses that rely on this vital corridor for their daily operations. Additionally, there's expected rise in truck traffic on the roads like Harmony and Hull, further worsening pedestrian safety risk, especially during special events such as Bike Week and Biketoberfest. Ormond Beach has blossomed into a hub of residential, recreational, and business activities, and this is an undeniable threat to Ormond Beach's overall well-being and future growth. We urge you to reject this project for the safety of our community. Thank you.
Next is Merrick Branker, and if Gary Bierman would come down. Take your seat.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Merrick Brunker. I'm an Ormond Beach resident, and I haven't heard a single person come down here in support of this, so I think I understand where it is that we all are. And just like this gentleman said, he came down here, he asked everybody, hey, are we on the same page? And it seems that we are. And I figured I'd get down here later than other people did, and that once I did, all the points that I wanted to cover would have already been covered. But that's okay. It shows that we're all on the same page. We're all concerned about the same things. And that's a number of things, whether it be these senior living facilities, this youth sports complex, how it's going to affect the traffic. It doesn't seem like it's a good deal for anybody here in this county, especially the people in Ormond Beach. And a number of my elders that I've talked to, you look back maybe a couple decades ago, maybe this would have been a good idea, and I understand the reason why, it might be pursued. But at this time, with everything surrounding it, it's not the right move. It's not what the people want. And I have great faith that our representatives are going to stand behind us and are going to block this. They're going to not be in support of it. So please listen to the citizens of Ormond Beach, listen to our elders, listen to your youth, and understand this is not something that we want. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Next, we have Anthony Ianlano, and if Timothy Frick would come take your seat down front. And
Good evening.
I probably
My name-
did not get your name right.
Anthony Iolano or Iolano.
Close.
Either way, thank you. I live in Ormond Beach. The tank farm project started in June of 2022, last year, in a Zoom meeting. Why are we just hearing about it now? There must have been sunshine law violations. The zoning was changed from light to heavy industrial for the tank farm. Why are we hearing about this just now? Again, sunshine law violations. The majority of the western edge of the site is wetlands. I have minutes from a meeting that has that in those minutes. So there's a major problem right there. Housing developments within walking distance and a bike ride away from the tank farm. Many senior citizens. These are voting, and tax-paying citizens, and they will not be safe. Huge sports complex right next to the site with children and families every day, year-round. And of course, they will not be safe. And we've talked about that. The airport with student pilots and jets coming in, small jets, next to flying into 40-foot-high fuel tanks. A disaster waiting to happen. God forbid a lightning strike, a hurricane, or an accident, millions of gallons of fuel in a residential recreational area, God help us all. Elementary schools are nearby, children and our teachers will not be safe. Traffic, and more traffic. And 165 tanker trucks a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and mix that in with Bike Week. Streams, waterways, well water, and the environment will be polluted, and we know that's going to happen. Property values will suffer, our quality of life will suffer. Thousands of people, over 10,000 or 12,000 people signed a petition. No one wants this. What is wrong with you? You are our leaders. Please lead. Stop it now.
Next will be Chris Ingalls, and if Skip Lilly would come take your seat down front.
Hello, I'm Chris Ingalls. I'm a resident homeowner of Ormond Beach. The proposed Belvedere Tank Farm location is why we're here, and I have important points of interest to cover tonight. For the last 26 years, being in the fuel tank design and manufacturing industry, I'm an expert in the protocols required of a well-designed fuel tank. Belvedere's COO states, and I quote, "The safety and well-being of Ormond Beach residents is our top concern. We're under contract with one of the top fire safety firms in the country, and they're designing this facility to meet and exceed all requirements from the American Petroleum Institute, National Fire Protection Association. We never want there to be any danger to our employees on the facility or anyone outside of it. And in the unlikely event that there is an emergency, we will be fully prepared." Okay, so all that sounds great until you look at two realities. One is the human element. In my 26 years, I've seen my fair share of spills, pencil-whipped inspections, fuel truck accidents, fires, water table contamination, overfill prevention valves that are stuck open, rusty leaking tanks, and the list goes on. All the controls are fine until regular inspections and maintenance goes sideways, causing a host of incidents. The other reality is the location of the proposed farm. Ormond Beach and the surrounding area is a tourist-heavy destination with a solid base of homes, schools, etc., and many housing developments adjoin the proposed location. I can't imagine there's a homeowner adjacent to the site that bought their home in anticipation of a fuel farm nearby. That will erode home values. Twice a year, US Back 1 is backed up for miles, full of motorcycle traffic waiting to enter either side of the road at Biker Row. US 1's regularly traveled and moderate to heavy traffic is a daily thing. Putting 160 fuel trucks on US 1 every 24 hours will lead to a disaster. And Belvedere nor the town will be fully prepared to handle the loss of life, damage to property, open water table contamination last 3 years. I'm sure we're all fully aware of what happened just in Philadelphia up on I-95 last week. Tourists traveling in and around Ormond Beach bring their own driving styles here from out of state regularly, especially in the summer months. With snowbird season during the winter, accidents rise from this element every year. Just to mention, I-95's most, oh man, I'm going to run out of time. Volusia County's population is 564,000.
Thank you. Are you for or against this?
I'm totally against it.
Okay. Thank you.
Could I buy 10 seconds?
No, sir, I'm sorry. I can't. You did a great job. Next, we have Alan Cohen, and if Robin Flannery will come take your seat at the front.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and hear our words.
I am in favor of the fuel farm, but not in our residential neighborhoods. Most of the things I was going to speak of have already been discussed and with great enthusiasm, passion, and truth. But I'm going to bring up something that I haven't heard yet in Ormond Beach or today's session. I'm talking about domestic terrorism. In the past couple of years, there have been over 250 attacks on our power grids throughout the country. It's up 77% from 2022, and no one ever gets caught. There are hundreds of mass shootings in the country. We have terrible mental health and anger issues in our country now. You think this fuel farm would be difficult to take down? Right on US 1, the gateway to Ormond Beach, just sitting there with all the lunatics out there in the world, ex-military people who are just disturbed about what's going on in the country, who have the ability, the technical skills. You look at what the Unabomber did, Harvard mathematician. He put together all kinds of mail bombs and things like that. I mean, there's a million different ways people could just take it out, and we don't want that to happen. It would devastate the area. Thousands of people would be killed, and Ormond Beach would never, ever recover. And the toxic fuel would be in our landfill for decades. So please do what you can and put this to bed. Thank you.
Next will be Gary Bierman, and if Sheila Lind would come take her seat down front.
Hello, I'm Gary Bierman from Ormond Beach. I'm a retired executive with Lockheed Martin, the world's largest defense company, and at some point in my career, I actually did port security for all the major ports in the United States. I managed a group that also did refinery and tank farm safety and security studies, analysis. And I can tell you they can meet every regulation and every law, and it is not going to be safe. What that gentleman just said, I was going to say. The offloading from the trains will be outside the protected perimeter. I guarantee you. The onloading to the trucks will be outside the protected perimeter. It's a target. It's an easy target. During Bike Week, it's a really attractive target. Okay, during a national softball meet in the sports complex, very attractive target. Okay, I've never seen a new fuel site like this being planned right next to residential areas. I've never seen it. It's nuts. The only time I've seen residential areas next to these kinds of facilities is when a town grew out towards them. They're always built away. They need a different location, and we need to help them get there. Now, for the county and the town, there's significant expenses to us, to this county, to this town. Okay, the fire departments have to have special equipment that they don't have right now. They have to be trained and certified on site every single year. The police departments have to have special equipment, special training, new communications equipment. All of this is going to cost a lot of money. If you're going to do it right, it's going to cost like a boatload of money. Where's that money coming from? Who's paying for that? You going to ask us to pay for it? I don't think so. Okay, so you really need to look at this, not only from a safety, security, and nobody wants a fuel farm in their backyard, but does it make any sense? Logistically, it makes business sense for Belvedere. It makes no sense for this community. You really need to do something about it. Thank you.
Next will be Timothy Frick, followed by Joe Will, if you'd come take your seat.
Good evening. My name is Timothy Frick. Myself, my family, we are residents of Ormond Beach. We've owned a business in Ormond Beach for over 20 years. I get more and more confused on why in God's name do we have to come here and defend ourselves over something that you could have just said no to a long time ago. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I can't say any more than they've said. They've said it all. It's just a repeat. But I just don't get it. And you know, one word I never wanted to hear from my mother that I'm going to say to you, when she would say, son, you've disappointed me. That was worse than anything. And you know what? We have voted you in to protect us, to help us grow, to love our community, to love everything about our lives. And I am disappointed that we all had to come here today to try to defend ourselves. Stop what you know is right and stop it now.
Next will be Skip Lilly and Rebecca, there's no last name, from Hope Street, if you would come take your seat down front.
Hi there, my name's Skip Lilly. I'm an Ormond Beach resident right in Ormond Lakes, which is basically across US 1. I could literally see the tank 40 feet high as I leave the neighborhood every morning. I don't know why we're even sitting here, like the gentleman said before this. This is just out of the box on location, and there's been a lot of growth. Businesses, neighborhoods, kids' recreational facilities, protected state forest lands and wetlands, an airport with a high known volume flight training present every day. Just within a few feet to a mile or two of this project. I can't believe we're even having to have this chat. This type of facility should be free and clear of any private or public property where there are any mentioned uses that are located. Accidents, national disasters, mistakes, and yes, even sabotage happens. And in this project's case, there's no opportunity to stop the aftermath. There is literally no buffer for a magnitude of this explosive fuel on site. Imagine an explosion and gross release of this fuel into our grounds, our wetlands, and the burning of that would occur in this situation. 20 million gallons of fuel. I looked it up real quick. I said, what's that? What's 20 million gallons feel like? Well, 1 gallon of gasoline is equivalent to 14 sticks of dynamite in explosive force. Okay? That's just a Google statistic. Let's check it. I don't know. Fact check. But what are we doing? Why are we even talking about this? This is 0.8 miles from my house. Where I live in Ormond Lakes, it only has 2 points of egress to the neighborhood. In the east side is a dense state forest backed up by a waterway. So the fire's coming at us and we can't get out. Okay, so should a catastrophic fire occur blocking both exits, I can't imagine what the consequences on the lives of that neighborhood. That's my home and that's my family in that neighborhood. I also note that there were forest fires burning for well over a week just a mile away from this facility early this year. Google Hurricane Dorian, tank failure, 2019. Dorian resulted in 5 storage tanks losing their lids and could not be found, creating a massive spill and environmental nightmare for the Bahamas. We get hurricanes here, okay? These tanks are going up and down in those lids. We all use gasoline. We all need gasoline. It's just not in this location. So I've said my piece. I got a few more, but everybody's said it already.
Next will be Robin Flannery, and if Jill Abston would come take your seat down front.
I'm short. Bear with me. Everything I had planned to say changed based on what the senior assistant attorney had to say. My first question is, if the Hometown News is the designated public notice, why isn't anybody monitoring it? The attorney also mentioned, when asked by Chairman Brower, when did we first learn of this? He stuttered and said, we learned about it through the Hometown News. Who is we, and when did we learn about it? All well and good. What I would wanted to actually say is, a permitted use is not the same thing as an appropriate use. We all know that. What I had researched has to do with one property owner's rights don't, I don't want to say trump mine because that's a word that people don't like to hear anymore. Nonetheless, FEC, Florida East Coast Railway, has a right to develop their property. I understand that. But they don't have a right to poison me and my neighbors in the process. The air permit issued by the DEP is laughable. This is where we have an ace in the hole. Those standards are old and they are based on estimates that are provided by the Petroleum Institute. Now, if this were to go through, we would be subject to the pollution by FEC Belvedere terminals. Halifax Paving, which is also a major air polluter and is stated so on Florida DEP, as well as Edgewell, who is a minor polluter. Now, the attorney mentioned that this is a minor air permit. I don't know the difference between a minor air permit and an air permit. However, we need to study in depth the standards at which this permit was approved, because those standards, the EPA has been aware that they are under-reporting and it's a flawed system. They've been on notice of this since 2007. So the standards used by Belvedere Terminals to get this air permit are flawed, and that's where we have to look. Everybody else said everything else I meant to say, and I thank you for your time.
Next will be Sheila Lind and Christine Uranaka, if you would come take your seat up front.
Good evening. I am a new Bear Creek Village resident. I bought a house in Bear Creek about 1.5 years ago. I'm still in the transition of moving down full-time to Bear Creek. My husband's still up north in Baltimore working until November when he retires. Our plan was buy a house in Bear Creek and live out our days peacefully, quietly, swimming in the pool, golfing, and enjoying the beach. When I found out about this, the first thing that came through my mind was, why? Why do we need to store 20 million gallons of fuel in tanks just down the street? I mean, the word itself, Bear Creek, or I'm sorry, Ormond Beach, the words itself, Ormond Beach. It's a beach town. It's a resort community. I came to a resort community. I told everybody up north, I'm moving to Ormond Beach. I'm going to be living by the beach. It's going to be great. I mean, to have a fuel farm a quarter mile down the road in a resort town, why would anybody want this? Why? I'm asking you, why do we need to store 20 million gallons of fuel? Everybody in the country's going, we're going electric, right? Everybody's going electric. What is the fuel for? Are you putting it on the tracks? So the train goes behind my house. I can literally see the train going behind my house with the fuel for the trucks that are in the fuel. So the fuel is for the trucks and the trains. I mean, I'm totally at a loss with what is the 20 million gallons doing for us, Bear Creek, for Ormond Beach, for the state of Florida? What is Belvedere doing with 20 million gallons of fuel? I don't even understand. Why? Why now and why in Ormond Beach? The word says it all. It's a resort. It doesn't belong there. Everything else you guys know, I passed out, gave you the maps, my little map for dummies. Here's the Bear Creek residence. Here's the soccer field. Here's a training airport. I mean, I've sent it to everybody. It's pretty simple. Hall Road's a dead-end street. You go down that road, you can't get back out unless you go out that way. Same thing with Bear Creek. There's 2 roads in, Airport Road and Hall Road. If this is going to be there, we're going to be trapped. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Next will be Joe Will, and to come take your seat, Rebecca Chafee.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are we? I used to have a job where I would sit all day and listen to people who were very angry, and so I feel kind of bad for you right now. Not real bad, but a little bit bad. I'll tell you about my standing. I've been living in Ormond Beach for 42 years. I lived frugally for most of those years, and we saved our money so that we could buy our dream home in Ormond Lakes. And now, I think if we will face to the west in the afternoon, we will just about get the shadow of a 40-foot tank on our side yard, which is probably, of all the things I've heard, I've said it before, is one of the dumbest ideas that I've ever heard to do this. And I think everybody agrees on it. So what I'd like to do is just incorporate by reference all of the smart things that have been said so far. A couple of the dumb ones, just forget about. But all the smart things, I couldn't agree more. I think people have every reason to be afraid and angry right now. I'm afraid and I'm angry. This isn't something that ever could or should have happened, and so I won't go back over it, but I have a couple of thoughts I'd like to share. First, it's very cool, isn't it, to see this kind of activism? I haven't seen this since they stopped the draft. Not in time, unfortunately. But it's exciting to see people getting up and speaking when they're upset about the way things are going. So my few thoughts. when the fuel farm people came to inquire of the staffs of Ormond Beach and Volusia County, the alarms should have gone off. There should have been fireworks. There should have been an explosion like a fuel farm caught on fire, warning the staff that something is about to happen that is going to make everybody in Volusia County angry before it's over. And I think that you need to build something into the system. So as we move forward, when somebody comes in and wants to propose a nuclear power plant in Holly Hill, that somebody knows to sound the alarm and take this to the appropriate people within the government and deal with it. I know that for a long, long time, government's been trying to make it easier for business to engage in Volusia County, and so you've built a system that moves that way. You need to move one back for bad things like this so that you have some protections. Second, you know the steps that are coming. They're predictable. Your staffs have done these things for years and years and years and years. We should be there before they are. We should get the best seats in the House. We should know what's going to happen and everything that we can possibly say to oppose it long before it ever happens. And my last point really is when you ask for a memo on standing, you don't really want an encyclopedic definition of standing, which is what you got. What you want is that much on the encyclopedic definition of standing, and then you want 10 more pages of creative thought. The law is a living, breathing, pumping organism, and it changes from day to day and year to year. And this kind of thing is what gives rise to change. Be ready to do that. And that's it. I'm going to stop because my time ran out.
Thank you. Next will be Rebecca from Hope Street, and then if Stephen Schecknader would come take your seat down front, please.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Mangali. I live on Hope Street. I live at it's a really nice intersection. It's called Hope and Harmony. And I'd like it to stay that way. And all of these people, they've had really good points. I sat and I listened to your attorney tell us that basically there's not much that we can do here. I've sat here and I've listened to you all say that who knew about the hometown news? As leaders, you should know exactly what is happening when it's happening. Shame on you for not doing your job that we elected you to do. It is quite simple. I have sat here and watched your mannerisms for the past hour and a half, and I've seen people playing on their cell phone, looking at computer screens, drifting off into space. I work with people for a living. I work in healthcare. I read mannerisms. I can tell when you care, and I can tell when you don't give a F because my children are here. You are failing us as people. These are who you're failing. These kids play soccer at the soccer complex. My neighbor's kid plays on the street every day. Do your job and protect the future. You are being lazy. To tell us that you can't do anything, ridiculous. What you need to do is stop it. And if you can't stop it, then some of you need to be turning in resignation letters.
Stop the fuel farm. I want to live a life.
Thank you.
Next will be Jill Abston, and then if John Letvoyer would come take his seat down front.
Good evening. I live in Ormond Lakes, across US 1 from the proposed Hull Road location, and I'm here to demand that you stand up and stop this fuel depot from being built at this location. I was at the City of Ormond Beach meeting where they told us this issue is in the county's hands. And I've already read and heard the comments stating that it's in the city's hands or there's nothing that you all can do about it. And I'm here to say that we're sick of excuses. You all need to listen to your constituents. We don't want this fuel farm in our town. Sorry, I lost my place. We don't want the pollution, we don't want the safety risk, and we don't want the traffic, and we don't want the noise. If you've never been to this area, I urge you to come visit. You'll see firsthand that it's an inappropriate location. This intersection has no traffic light. Every resident of Ormond Lakes does a U-turn here to get to their home, so there's already way too much traffic. And making a left turn from Hull Road towards 95 is nearly impossible at most times of the day when you're not driving a fuel truck. I'm a mother. We moved to Ormond Lakes for the excellent elementary school located on Airport Road, just a few miles from this location. My kid's bus crosses these railroad tracks and passes this location twice on the way home from school every day. Makes me sick to think what an accident with a fuel truck would look like. There was a story in the news the other day about a school bus in Ohio that overturned because of an accident with a minivan. Somehow in all of the terrible injuries, there was only one fatality, one child that died for somebody else's mistake, and that bus wasn't on fire. If my child dies in a fuel explosion or a fiery crash involving a fuel truck, will you go to bed knowing that you did everything possible to stop this? Thank you.
Next is Christine Uranaka, and if Sammy Langford would come take.
Sorry, I believe I got skipped over. My name is Steven. I wanted to say a couple words. Steven Scheck-Snyder,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Good
Stephen.
evening.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening. I just want to say a couple words. I live on the other side of 95. I commute on a motorcycle every day back and forth. Commercial vehicles are a concern, obviously, for my safety and well-being. I can only imagine how chaotic it's going to be when Bike Week and Biketoberfest are here. Other than everything that's already been said, I would just be regurgitating great points, but I'm going to be a father soon, so I'm looking, and I don't want to raise my son in a community where there's basically 20 million gallons of fuel. I mean, one gentleman said that 1 gallon of fuel equals 14 sticks of dynamite, right? So times that by 20 million. You know, how large of a nuclear weapon basically is this in our community? You know, I mean, how many kilotons is this going to be when it explodes, you know, or leaks? And so basically every current resident of Ormond Beach and visitor and every future resident and visitor is at risk with this. And I don't think this should go through. Anything that can be done needs to be done. Thank you.
Now we have Christine Uranaka and Catherine Pante. Could come take your seat down front.
Good evening. My name's Christine Uranaka. I've lived in Ormond Beach for about 1.5 years. I moved here from Orlando, in Windermere, just outside Orlando, and I moved here for a lifestyle change. When we talk about the area, and it is the most critical piece, those communities immediately surrounding this land, but we need to look at the radius of where these fumes can go, where this really can impact. And I'm talking about that wonderful Halifax River that I was kayaking on this weekend. Sunday, I spent the day at the beach. We really have a lifestyle here to maintain as well. So I came here to oppose this project. Zoning is meant to protect us, and when zoning gets changed arbitrarily for monetary gains or annexations, it does impact our lifestyle. It impacts our values of our homes. It impacts us in many, many other ways as well. So the selected site for this project, it certainly will devalue the residential properties and diminish the quality of life for those of us living in this area. But more important, the potential impact is on all the citizens' health and their well-being. Breathing in even small amounts of these noxious fumes can lead to nose and throat irritation, headaches, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, confusion, and breathing difficulties. Remember, this only is intensified in any of your citizens that have comorbid conditions. Citing and somewhat paraphrasing the National Center for Biotechnology and the National Institute of Health, during both storage and transfer, a small fraction of unburned fuel is released to the environment. While the fraction may be small, the cumulative release can be substantial. It is a public health concern as fuel contains toxic and carcinogenic chemicals. Now, I fully understand the value of annexing. I understand the value of adding tax base to our community, but this is truly not the place for this fuel storage facility. I end by asking if anyone on the board lives in the communities that will be adjacent or in close proximity to the fuel storage station. Of course, this is rhetorical in nature. I can't imagine any of you would want this in your backyard either, near your loved ones, near your children. So please put yourself in our shoes. It sounds like some of this, I can't imagine all of you were sitting on the board in 2006 when this started slipping through. So I get that, but now we really do need all your power and your fight to help us maintain what we have. Thank you.
Next will be Rebecca Chafee, and then David Smith can come take a seat down front.
Hello, good evening. I'm Becca Chaffee, and I'm speaking on behalf of Suzanne Schreiber for Dream Green Volusia. She couldn't be here tonight. The county government is responsible for public safety. Allowing the fuel storage facility in this area is not conducive to looking out for the public. Would you actually choose to put corporate interests over the citizens' voices in public safety? That is what we're talking about here. What happened to community and place? Elected officials serve to take care of community and place. Any other reason is not serving those who elected you. Community and place are an expansive idea. In part, it means that Volusia County is large and there is a responsibility for the safety and well-being of all who live here. The county's economic engine is driven by its ecological engine, and as a reminder, this includes people. How many times have we heard there is nothing that can be done because property owners have rights? Nothing supersedes people's rights of health and safety concerns, essentially community and place. Belvedere terminals should show good faith and work to find a different location. The chosen spot is not sensible to looking out for people. There is widespread opposition to the fuel depot at Hull Road, and the request is for the county council to oppose the project, represent the citizens, and look out for public health and safety concerns. Thank you for your time.
John Zetvoyer. You're going to have to correct your name when you get here. Is John here? Okay. Sammy Langford. Sammy's not here. Catherine, you're up.
Greetings, council members. My name is Catherine Pante, and I'm a Volusia County resident. I do not live in Ormond Beach, but I came here in support of the Ormond Beach neighbors. I do live in Daytona Beach. Most of everything of what I've got to say has been said already. There's maybe one segment on here. I did a little bit of internet research, and teenagers are drawn to tanks. They like to climb on them. If you just, it's all you need to do is just do a search in Texas. There were 4 teenagers that were killed when they climbed up on a tank to hang out, probably smoke some cigarettes, and the tank blew up. There was another one in Tennessee and another one in Oklahoma. So that's a trend with teenagers. We don't know what type of security they would have on board. So I'm going to change gears because everything has already been mentioned. And what I want to ask the council is companies, this designation to industrial was changed in the county level, I guess, in 2006. Most recently, it was changed to industrial in Ormond Beach, August 1st. So if a business can have a request to change, why can't we as a community request a change back? There's more than 10,000 of us here that would like this to be changed back. That speaks volumes over a business. And there's another avenue that I think we could go to. I did get a response from the DEP, and they shuffled it back into the county and city's court saying zoning. That's what the DEP sent today in an email. This needs to be taken up as far as zoning. And if in fact we can contest this through other avenues, maybe the city and the county can get together and just pay them for their permit, what they've already spent with our taxpayer dollars, and let's just be done with it and get them out of our area. I don't think it's a good fit for anywhere in Volusia County. Thank you.
Okay, next is going to be David Smith, and then let me call a couple of other people up to sit in the front row. Connie Colby, Raymond Franzer, and Leslie Lee.
Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Dave Smith. I live in Ormond Lakes. I'm here in objection to Belvedere's proposed fuel farm. I've spent over 50 years as a Volusia County resident within a couple of miles of this Hull Road location. I'm now retired there. Belvedere states on their site that this location will provide fuel to remote and underserved Georgia and Florida markets in the western areas of both states, and they have a map showing that area. Why would they put it in an area like this that is highly populated and not near their markets? They can choose many less populated areas near rail service for their estimated 400,000 gallons of fuel exchange per year. There exists a known hazardous waste spill from Hudson Technologies on US 1 today. It is monitored by the Department of Environmental Protection with regularly drilled wells dotted across the east of US 1, and the toxic plume is now approaching the Tomoka Basin. Daily handling of so many hundreds of thousands of gallons will surely spill and leak vapors seen as insignificant to the person spilling them, but make the smaller spills from Hudson Technologies look pale. Expected future fuel contamination will flow that same direction across US 1, Ormond Lakes, and Pine Run. There are approximately 45,000 registered motorcycle owners in Volusia County, and they would likely second our opposition to a fuel truck entering US 1 every 9 minutes at the center of Motorcycles Ground Zero playground. We ask the county to oppose this tank farm and use all legal means to disallow Belvedere's terminal at Hull Road from proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie Colby, you will be next, and Linda McMahon, if you want to take your seat down front. Connie Colby?
We didn't hear the name.
Pardon me?
We didn't hear the name. We didn't hear the name.
Connie Colby. Sorry. There's a lot of applause.
Good evening. I'm Connie Colby, and I live in Ormond Beach. Nobody said anything that I have here, so either I'm totally wrong or have something different. Let's see. One of the things that I would like to talk about is that the 874 Hull Road, according to the zoning verification summary in the county, says that this is a 1-2A heavy industrial zone. And I saw a little notation somewhere that the A after that means that that is an airport overlay district. And that would include that property at that point. And it doesn't mention any place in the details about the heavy industrial zone that, excuse me, the airport overlay district. It doesn't mention that they have fuel storage terminals for that heavy industrial area. And according to section 172 of the code, it says, if a use or a structure is not expressly permitted in any classification, and that's the airport overlay zone, the enforcement official shall not permit such use of the structure otherwise permitted in this classification. The written purpose of the airport overlay zone ends with to provide coordination of permit applications between the county and the state. So that airport overlay zone has some special conditions, and it appears that that airport should, or that Belvedere terminal should not be allowed there. Also, the county could probably help by denying the pending review application that has gone to the
Volusia Growth and Management Commission, dated 7/25, asking for approval of the large-scale amendment changing the future land use designation of approximately 52 acres of the 860 Hull Road and the 1399 Hull Trail from Volusia County Industrial to the City of Ormond Beach Heavy Industrial. The original application for that change of zoning was only for 2.5 acres in Ormond Beach, and somehow that got changed to 52 acres. The paving company only wanted enough room for their new building and to connect to the water. So, however that to 52 got in there, I don't know, but I'm done. That was fast.
Thank you. Raymond Franzer and Jenny Nazak, if you would come take your seat down front.
It has been mentioned that Bear Creek is a quarter of a mile from the proposed fuel farm. In fact, where the trucks would come out on Harmony Road, the distance between where the trucks would come out and Bear Creek is about the distance that a father and son would be apart when they were playing catch. In addition, they would be that close to the dance studio, the gym, the entrance to the sports complexes right there. The county does have control of the roads. Hull Road and Harmony Road, due to the danger posed to the civilians of having that many trucks that close to civilians, Harmony Road and Hull Road should be classified as no explosive vehicle, no explosive content allowed to be transported. Those roads should be free from any explosive content. Secondly, as the property values go down, and as people cannot sell their houses in Bear Creek and other places, the blight does not stop there. All of us have come from communities where, due to increased traffic for one type of initiative, expanding road yard, the blight continues. Ormond Beach will be two separate communities. One, the land side of the river, and another, the beach side. It will be devastating. And the difficulty of legal action does not override the requirement to provide for the safety of the citizens. To consider the difficulty of legal action over the citizens' rights would be tremendous goal displacement. Thank you.
Leslie Lee, you are next, and Michael Landre, if you would come take your seat down front.
Hi, my name is Leslie Lee from Ormond Beach, and my husband and I are here to strongly protest against the proposed fuel storage facility of more than 20 million gallons of fuel. This proposed facility is an environmentally sensitive area near Ormond Beach's only airport, sports complex involving hundreds of families, in addition to being within 10 miles of thousands of people's homes, even beachside. The possibility for ground and surface water contamination is real. The likelihood that a major hurricane may strike and take out those storage tanks is real. The fact that all of the fuel will be transported into the facility by rail and truck right through the center of homes and businesses, the risk of derailment, fire, and contamination is real. The fact that our homes will become less valuable is real. The fact that our community may become an easy target for terrorists or by a hostile country is real. This is not a community facility Ormond Beach should desire nor allow. We love Ormond Beach, and we should do all we can to protect our citizens and preserve our land. And I do sense all of people's, frustration and anger, and I understand it and feel it myself, but I know that you all are feeling that as well. And I would really like if we could all work together to facilitate this. Thank you.
Next will be Linda McMahon and David Bell. If you would come forward, please. Linda?
Yes, I asked to speak because I'm a child who grew up in Woburn, Massachusetts, on the verge of East Woburn, and all the things that happened in the book, Civil Action, in the movie. And I want to say from personal experience and my family's experience that when you have a family that experiences multiple sclerosis, basal, squamous, and melanoma, breast cancer, DCIS, lung damage, neuropathy, medical issues, and early deaths, that exposure does do damage. I can speak from personal experience. And having been a teacher, and having been a science specialist, and having done a lot of study on environmental issues, that everyone that has said things, I have to say from a personal experience, it does terrible things to people, whether it's air, whether it's water, whether it's fire, whether it's explosion, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I'm 77 years old. I could be your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your aunt, your great-aunt. Think of all the people that in this particular area can expose and what it can do to them. I have at least 15 doctors. My family has incredible amounts of doctors, and no one has spoken to that, and I wanted to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Nazak, you are next, and Darlene Gillette, if you want to come down to the front.
Good evening, councilors and fellow citizens. Jenny Nazak, Daytona Beach on the beach side. Okay, I'm going to go really wild here and say this giant bloated tanks of millions of gallons of gasoline should not exist anywhere on planet Earth, in anyone's backyard, anywhere, near nobody's grandkids and nobody's grandmother and nobody's pets and all that. Now, transportation is a basic human need, and gasoline is a way that we get transportation, and we utilize it. But humans have gotten along for a while using petroleum without building giant, these huge tank farms. Like, it shouldn't exist anywhere. First of all, what if there's a wildfire? Like, what's going to happen? There's going to be more and more wildfires. These large centralized things are something we should get away from. All of us can be a lot better about how we use resources. I know sometimes I catch myself wasting resources, but every drop we can conserve. We can get our basic needs met, we can have fun, we can enjoy our lives, but we can look around us and we can see gasoline and other fuels getting wasted all the time. So let's look to cut our vast use, because this is madness. How crazy is it that we have to build these things just to get our needs met, and they're so dangerous? They're always going to be near somebody's kid. They're always going to be near someone's grandmother. They're always going to be near the train tracks or a school, or they're going to be out in the forest where the animals are. Those animals don't deserve that. They didn't ask for this. So yeah, let's be creative, humans. Let's not do this. Let's just not. We can do better. Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Landry, and then Colby Allman, if you would come down to the front.
Michael Leandre here with Benjamin Leandre, my son, who has played soccer at the soccer field where these tanks are proposed to be. However, I like to speak things as if they were, and I'm going to say those tanks will never be in those fields. And I also would like to say 3 words. We the people. We are this country. Nothing against any of these people, and I hope all of you are on our side, but we are the people. In 1620, the bloodline that I am of came here on a boat. We called that boat the Mayflower, and we came here, and we have migrated across this country from North Dakota, South Dakota, California, and all of us have ended up right here in the last free country. And we the people will make sure that what we need for our families to keep our sons safe and our children safe and our daughters safe and our wives and our families safe will happen. And I'm very sure that the same permitting board that makes it so difficult for the neighbors on my avenue, Reynolds Street, who are having an issue finding the time for their house plans to be approved, I'm sure that Belvedere Corporation will also find it very difficult to find their plans approved. And that will not happen because I'm going to speak that which I want to see as if it already is. And those tanks are not coming to Ormond Beach. There are lots of places where they could go that will not be in the proximity of our children. Just remember, we the people.
Okay, next is David Bell, and I just want to make sure for the people downstairs that might not have heard me, if Sammy Langford or John Letvoyer is here, please come up and take a seat in the front. David?
David Bell, Ormond Beach. How did we get here? Nobody knew about it, but someone knew to change the zoning to heavy industrial. I'm here not only fighting for the safety of our community, our residents, our retirees, the children, but I'm here fighting for my livelihood, as all of our local businesses are. My wife and I, owners of Amanda's Dance Center, a children's dance studio my wife started in Volusia County 27 years ago, and it's been located on Hull Road for the past 15 years at 873 Hull Road. Unless we stop this, the fuel terminal is to be located at 874 Hull Road, literally across the street from our business, putting 150 kids and their families in danger. A business that we've had for 20 years, that in a building that we own, pretty much putting our business at risk. So relocating at this point is not an option. And what will this fuel plant do to the property value of that building that we own across the street? In Tennessee, less than a week ago, a fuel facility exploded and everyone within a 1-mile radius had to be evacuated. That was a small operation compared to Belvedere. The cause? System failure, not human error, not negligence, but something broke. All the safeguards and precautions in the world can't prevent something from breaking and causing a major catastrophe. Research has shown the leading cause of fuel farm explosions is lightning strike. West 2 News reported just last month that in the month of June 2023, Volusia County had more lightning strikes than anywhere else in the country. You were elected to make decisions based on what is best for your community and your constituents and not what is convenient for you. Do what's right. Shut this down. Your hands are not tied. Thank you.
Darlene Gillette?
Hi, Commissioners. Boy, that was a tough act to follow, I'll tell you. My name is Darlene Gillette, and I am a registered nurse, and I am the president of Cat 6 Hurricane Rescue located here in Ormond Beach. I am obviously opposed to the proposed tank field, as we called it. Prior to moving here to the area, I lived 3 miles from a tank fields of Carteret, New Jersey. There were several instances with the tanks, such as leaks and fires, which were detrimental to the surrounding area, including my home. Also, I wanted to point out that the smell of fuel was at times overbearing, and the fuel would leave an oily coating on everything. Also, I ride a motorcycle, and during the bike events, that highway is filled with people and bikers. The tank field should not be allowed here. Also, as a registered nurse, I wanted to say that the hospitals are not prepared to handle the influx of people if there is an emergency. There is no burn unit in Volusia County. The closest burn unit is in Orlando, ORMC. And if there is a burn patient, they need to be airlifted there by the helicopters. There was a heliport at Advent and one on the roof of of Halifax, okay? The only trauma center, Halifax is a trauma center in Daytona Beach, and they have 3 trauma bays in their ED, 3. And they only have 80 beds in their emergency room. How do I know? Because I worked there for 5 years, okay? So Advent is not equipped to handle in their emergency department if there is such a problem at the tank field. They have if anybody goes to the hospital, they are well aware of the wait just to get back to see a doctor in the emergency room. Can you imagine if there's a problem at that tank field and there's an emergency and there's a fire? Our hospitals are not equipped to handle any of that. In the one in Flagler, the one in Halifax, the one in New Smyrna, these are our local hospitals. Deltona has Halifax out there. They're not a trauma center either. So we're just not equipped on a medical standpoint to handle any of this if there's a problem. Thank you, commissioners.
Colby Ormond.
Hello, Council. Good to see you again. I strongly encourage the Volusia County Council to take into special consideration the viewpoint of Ormond Beach's residents. And even our mayor has spoke specifically against this issue, saying it, quote, clearly does not fit in the area. And Ormond Beach is most impacted by this issue. And our city being right here, it's not in Ormond Beach, but as you can see, we're clearly concerned about this. I strongly encourage Volusia County to stay true to our democratic system by fully adopting the mindset and will of the citizenry it exists to serve. And I thank the County Council for its commitment to our residents. And I ask that you do what you can to affect the will of our people. Now, personally, I've been an Ormond Beach resident for nearly 2 decades, and I've lived in our community, and I know its values, and I've used the sports complex less than a mile from this proposed facility. And even putting our air quality and traffic issues aside, we are a hurricane town, and some September day, we will have a large storm come through, and this facility will fail, and it'll cause a great disaster for Ormond Beach. So thank you, and we are counting on you.
Okay, just to give one last try to the 2 people that didn't respond, Sammy Langford, John Zetvoyer. No, then that concludes the public comment section of this. And council members, do you want to ask more questions of staff or go right into, Troy Cannon, I'm just going to let you start.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm gonna jump right into debate and comments. I first want to thank the Volusia County residents that came out today. Ormond Beach, thank you. This is my district. This is my district, and I want to thank this council for agreeing to have this special meeting when I brought this up last week. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. And I have responded to each email I've received on this, and many of you said to me, what can we do? And I said, show up to the meeting if you can, because it's impactful and it's powerful. And our county manager has been here for over 20 years, and I overheard him say he has never, ever seen the line that he saw wrapped around the rotunda several levels. Thank you. We are still, thank God, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This location, it is wildly inappropriate for a fuel farm. I'm against it. I think all 42,000 residents of Ormond Beach are against it. The Ormond Beach City Commission, I want to thank them. And there's been some talk about pointing fingers. I'm not going along with anybody pointing fingers. We are going to work with Ormond Beach. I told Ormond Beach, and by the way, Commissioner Travis Sargent from Zone 2 was here. Commissioner Lori Tollin from Zone 1. Wave Lori. Lori is here from Ormond Beach. And I've had conversations with Mayor Partington and Harold Briley. They are on board. They don't want this in Ormond Beach. So this is a really good opportunity for the county and Ormond to work together on something collectively. And I believe that is what is going to happen. Interesting that there are 12,000 signatures on that petition, because there were 6,000 a couple days ago. Now it's 12,000. I think in 3 days there would be 40,000. But let me tell you who else is against it. The Civic League of the Halifax area, State Representative Tom Leake, Ormond Beach Chamber of Commerce. Now, this announcement we heard was done in the Hometown News. The county doesn't use Hometown News for announcements. Ormond Beach doesn't use Hometown News for announcements either. I struggled to find, and I couldn't find this announcement about the air quality test online. Reopening this will give the county, the city of Ormond Beach, and the affected property owners like SR Parat, Bear Creek, Ormond Lake residents. It'll give all of us an opportunity to participate at this lower level comment period, which is so desperately needed and vitally important. Let's have a conversation with Belvedere. That hasn't happened. We need to bring them to the table and help them find a more suitable location, because this isn't the location. Okay? A lot changes in 10 to 15 years, and this zoning land use change occurred 17 years ago. I disagree with some of you, because I do believe there is a need for these type of structures in certain places. Not in this place. Certainly not there. We need to have this conversation, and we need to help direct the conversation. You know, always better to have a seat at the menu. I'm sorry, to have a seat at the table than to be on the menu. And I felt like we were being served on the menu with this one. Okay? I object to this project. I object to all permits for this project on behalf of you, our residents. I want to work with staff. You heard Clay Irvin earlier. Clay's absolutely the best in the business. But I want George to direct Clay and his team to review and make sure our primary zonings are appropriate, and that our borders with all 16 cities in Volusia County and the counties that border Volusia County, that we're on the same page. So stuff like this just doesn't happen again. I'd like for us to talk about us writing a letter to our legislative delegation stating our opposition and asking for their help. Again, I'm going to mention we need to sit down with Belvedere and help them find a more suitable location, because this one is just not going to work. And I'm going to yield my last 15 seconds, Chairman.
Councilman Santiago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ormond Beach, you're represented well. Let me tell you that. Yeah, I want to give a little context and history. I feel compelled always to do that, because I'll tell you this first. If I lived in that community, I'd be on that seating over there too. So let me just put that on the table. So I get the advocacy and I respect it. But it's also important to know how this council reacted. Tensions are high. I get it. But I want you to know what happened here at our last council meeting. Your representative did a great job. He learned of something that was going on real time in your community. It was a commission meeting happening there. And it was toward the end of our pretty long meeting. I don't know if it was close to midnight, I think, or somewhere around there. He brought up the issue, and he explained it to us, and immediately my colleagues and I got engaged. And we said, we need to do something. We need to find out ways to help this community, help Troy in his backyard, and see. But the problem was we didn't know anything. So we directed staff saying, go get us some information, right? And so that's why we even called for the special meeting that you all are participating in today. So represented well, it's important to know that we all bounced to the fight right away to get the details, because without knowing the facts, you don't know what to fight if there is a fight. But Troy pointed out some good points, and the public did also. The public notification process is broken. Now, I'll admit that. And that is a state law that's archaic. However, there was a recent change in the legislature that allowed for some more modernized ways to provide public notification. I know my colleague Jake a few months ago mentioned it, and I think it's a prime for discussion at our next council meeting to talk about it. It's a more modern methodology that can be utilized real time, that it can be shared amongst many government entities. So I won't go into that too much, other than the fact that we have a tool that can probably help this type of notification in the process, and I think we should get engaged in it. Another gentleman from the public spoke. He said, we know the steps that are coming before us. There's the key, sir. I don't know where you're at, but you hit the nail on the head. And because there's steps involved with all types of these, it's not a rezoning hearing because that happened in 2006, but there are other technical steps and hurdles that they have to accomplish. I think this council, I think our staff, our legal department has got the message, right? And I'm sure my colleagues are going to hear more. What I ask the public, however, is you'll hear from my colleagues, but these things are very legal, technical, and we have to be very careful and very calculated in how we go about it. So at the same time, I want to respect our council, who is really one of the best in the industry. We have a great team, I can tell you that. I've seen their successes on many levels. But if you've ever been in litigation, you know what your counsel always tells you, right? We got to go about this smartly and technically so that we can win. So I've always, even in the last meeting, I've told my colleagues, I says, hey, we're going to go on for something. Let's make sure we do it right, because what's the goal is whatever the win looks like. So I just want to say that. And Troy, you said it right. This could also be solved very easily with engagement and conversation with our legislative colleagues, the property owner. The property owner is certainly probably listening to this meeting, or one of his representatives is listening to this meeting, and they're calculating, is it worth the fight? So the advocacy out here and the engagement is important, but I also want to encourage our staff to create that dialogue, because some of this can possibly be solved, lack of a better term, in just behind the scenes or in conversation. Hey, there's 30 acres somewhere else that might work. There's a willing seller or something like that. But those things have to occur. And also from a technical perspective, the steps that are involved that we all know, our staff knows, but it's important for the public to know. Right now, in its current state, this project is not scheduled for a technical vote from this body. It's important to know that. If the process were to go as it's scheduled, there will be no vote amongst this body, because that happened in 2006. However, as I started in the beginning, those other technical steps, they still have to do those. And that is all done on the legal and on the staff level technical requirements. And again, as I said, I know this group, they got the message. Let's let them do what they do good. And I'm sure my colleagues will share more, but I hear you, I understand, and I'd be on that side if I lived over in that area. So thank you for coming.
Councilman Johansson.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I did the unthinkable. I called Belvedere and talked to Mike, Mr. Benedetto. He shared some information with me. I'll call it secondhand knowledge right now. But he didn't just wake up and decide to build a fuel farm here or a fuel depot. As I understand it, there was some collaboration with the state at the Secretary of Commerce level regarding resiliency and fuel supply chain. And as I understand it, he was asked, or his company was asked, to come up with a plan with some possible solutions. And frankly, the way the zoning was, this was an easy target. He did tell me that he was not opposed to alternative plans. He just hasn't set in the site plan and started talking to Mr. Irvin yet about how to move forward. So we can't say no to something we haven't received yet to say no about. All we have is the air permit, so that's why we're here today. I share that with you because everybody seems to go, what about him? Well, I chatted with him today. somebody mentioned, would you want to live next to a fuel tank? Well, some of you know I was in the military for 35 years, and most of my life I lived next to a fuel tank. So maybe that's why I'm screwed up in here instead of enjoying my retirement. You asked how could you not see that, or how could you omit that? But I want to share something with you. And you're not going to like it, but it's the truth. You got over 10,000, 12,000 petition signatures. That's awesome. Are they from Florida? Are they from Volusia County? Or are they from all over the world? They're from all over the world. The ones online, right? Listen, folks, I'm just doing based on the research I saw with the petitions that we're counting the 40,000 people. I'm just telling you what I'm researching. I think it's all clear now that the zoning changed in 2006. There's an additional zoning thing going on, I think, at the city that's separate from what the county's doing or did. And at this point, based on what Mr. Santiago said, I'm starting to now understand, once I heard Hometown News, that I now have a problem with the notice. Because in my 5 years as a city manager, as much as I wanted to save money and use Hometown News to do our budget announcements and our land use announcements, I couldn't do it on Hometown News because their circulation wasn't enough. And I can imagine, based on all you folks that get the Hometown News, I heard none, that they don't have enough circulation in Ormond either. So I know that's something that staff's going to look into. But George has the same problem. He'd save a lot of money in advertising the Hometown News instead of the Journal and the Beacon if he could, I'm sure, as well. But we can't do that. So hopefully that statute applies to this as well, and we can get some momentum there. And lastly, for some of you, I heard that you're concerned about the air traffic and the possibility of crashing into this fuel farm. Well, it raises my concern that same air traffic is flying over my kids when they're playing baseball and flying over Bear Creek too. So now I'm a little concerned. If you're concerned about the air traffic crashing, I'm concerned about the air traffic crashing too. So I don't know how being an air traffic guy or an aviator, how they could maybe land there and not here. So maybe that's something that we need to look at as a city, but aircraft safety. And I think last but not least, if you'll give me your attention because I gave you mine, that our staff listens to hundreds of projects a week. I've called our staff 5 or 6 times saying, hey, there's a 10-acre property. Can I subdivide and live on 5 and do this? And I never buy the property. And then I call Clay again in 5 weeks and go, oh, there's a 20-acre property. Can I do this? Yeah, Jake, but you got wetlands over there. You got to understand that a lot of those things never come to fruition. So our staff and the city of Ormond staff never tried to hide anything. Thank you.
Councilman Dempsey. Could y'all?
Well, that's an easy act to follow. Can I talk to Mike for a second? I heard the young Ms. Colby talk about this all being in the airport protection overlay zone. Is that correct? Or is that, okay, follow.
Well, first I would need to defer to Mr. Irvin on that. My understanding is not, but that is something that they would have to go through and assess against at the site plan stage.
Okay.
To apply your land development regulations.
Is this part of my 5 minutes or is this question? Because I got questions and then comment.
It's part of your 5 minutes, so, but you've got two times.
I got 2 times, okay. So the airport protection overlay zone, is that something that applies to the FAA? Does that apply to the city of Ormond? Does that apply to us?
It's in your code, but I'll defer to Paula.
Do you want to?
Every city and every county in the state of Florida has to have an airport protection set of standards. We have one that's been adopted, and it basically applies to all lands within Volusia County that are within a set distance of the Ormond Beach Airport. This subject property is within the airport overlay. As such, we're going to require that they have to go through a variety of FAA assessments as to whether or not the structures can be located there. There is a specific prohibition against combustible material within the runway protection zone, the RPZ. The RPZ for the Ormond Beach Airport is contained entirely within the Ormond Beach Airport. This property is not within the runway protection zone.
Okay, because this lady, whoever was nice enough to provide this map to all of us, I appreciate that. Jake, I'm also a pilot, and I know you are, Jake. And and just correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like based on this, the run-out area for runway 17, actually it'd be runway 35, is about it's.
You got to use your mic. Nobody can hear you.
Yeah, I've got the worst mic, I think, out of all of us. But anyway, it appears, looking at this, that the run-out for runway 35, this fuel farm is like directly on the
Immediately
run-out.
north, yes.
Directly north. So basically, when a plane is taken off north on runway 35, this fuel farm would be basically a mile under it, under the flight path.
That's
Okay.
a distinct possibility.
The only thing that I'm concerned about, if you all recall, I don't know how many here follow the West Side News, but if you remember about, I think it was 10 years ago when that plane was taken off and crashed into Publix because it had an engine failure. And that was a big issue. And that was about a mile off the threshold of runway 27. No, 23, sorry. But same scenario. I mean, had that happened in this location, that could have been bad. And I believe there was another 152 training plane, also same thing, engine failure, and crashed about a mile off the threshold. So if there was a similar, engine failure coming off of runway 35, I mean, that could be really bad if the fuel farm's under, if it wasn't a Publix, but a fuel farm. So I'm just wondering, under this overlay issue, if we could really monitor the FAA and whatever we got to do, because my understanding is that a protected service zone includes all lands in the unincorporated portions of the county lying beneath the primary approach, transitional, horizontal, clinical surfaces, or they apply to the particular airport, basically to make sure that there's no safety hazards in that area. And this is, kind of right underneath the takeoff. And even more concerning is there's a precision approach coming in from the north. And if somebody's flying instrument, which means you can't see anything, you're just completely relying on your gauges, the decision height, I believe, is 275 feet. So literally you can fly blind all the way down till 275 feet above the ground. And then you have to, so it's just, there's a lot of concern on my part about the safety with the fuel farm there and the airport, because my son was he was an instructor for Phoenix East, and they did a lot of their training over there at Ormond, because that's a controlled airport, and you can get, DeLand's uncontrolled, so there's not as much precision approach training done there, but there's a lot in Ormond. We're one of the biggest training facilities, Ormond is, not only for Embry-Riddle, but basically for European. My son used to teach the Norwegians, and so there's a lot of training that goes on, and I would submit a lot of accidents. And so I guess do we have the ability to monitor this and make sure that this is really being thoroughly evaluated, either by the FAA or anybody else who has jurisdiction over this?
Yes.
Okay. Is that reached that threshold yet, or is that something that
We haven't even received a set of plans. And
Understood.
so the simple fact is that the site plan process is a lengthy time frame. There's basically a requirement to come in and meet with us, go over what the requirements are, come back and make a submittal. We provide a series of comments. The state of Florida has put in place a shot clock. In other words, we have 120 days from date of submittal of the site plan to either approve or deny or approve with condition. And, or they can request a waiver from the shot clock. In this particular situation, we have not received any of the documentation we need. One of the things we will require is an analysis utilizing the standards that are within our airport overlay and the requirements of 333 Florida statutes to ensure that this is in compliance with our airport overlay and is providing for all necessary requirements that the FAA would have for the placement of these things.
Okay, so there would be a time to express the concern about the locality of the fuel farm to the airport at
Yes,
some
sir.
point. Okay. And do we know where this ASR 9 radar zone is by any chance?
Yes, sir.
We do, and where is that?
It's on the airport. It's on the northwest side of the airport between the northwest quadrant of the two runways. We've been in contact with Steve Licklider, who is the airport manager, to make sure that we are taking a coordinated effort. Also, I've had contact with our own staff at Daytona Beach International to make sure that we have clarity as to what is going to be required. Once we get something submitted, then we can sit there and be able to ensure that we have the right set of eyes on it, looking at it to make sure that it's in compliance with those standards.
Will we receive any type of notification when this safety concern is going to be brought up?
Well, it's required for us in order to approve the final site plan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to be a situation where it would be approved by the FAA and we wouldn't have any kind of requirement for it to be part of our review package.
So we would have to basically sign off on this airport protection overlay for them to be able to get a building permit?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Site plan.
A site, yes, ma'am. Okay.
And then after that, there is also a requirement to provide proof that you're in compliance with it with the building permit.
All right, thank you.
Sure,
My pleasure. That's all.
Councilman Reinhardt.
Thank you, Chair. Clay, if I could ask you a question real quick, I'm sorry. Real quick, does the DEP use our overlay map at all when they determine whether or not they agree to this? Is that part of the process? Forgive my ignorance because I'm just...
The air permit is not pertaining to any kind of land use
At all,
compatibility
okay.
or anything else. It's a pure technical review of what's being discharged by the construction activity and the activity
into
itself.
the environment. Okay, very good. Okay. And I don't guess you know what it's just that's the only criteria they're using, correct?
We have received a copy of what was submitted to the DEP. What they've identified are the different chemicals that will be discharged out into the air and how the equipment that they would be utilizing to diffuse them so that they could be diffused at a safe level.
And that's listed in the permit? Okay, all right.
We just got this.
We did just get, okay, so we'll have access to that permit to look at that as well.
We'll be getting it out to everybody as soon as we can. But
Okay.
basically what it is they identified the chemicals that would be discharged and the methods of doing it. And then we also have the memorandum from the DEP staff saying it was meeting the requirements.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, forgive my ignorance, I'm just learning this too as well. I'm just the dumb CO up here. So, anyways, but when we first brought this up, and it was clarified by Councilman Santiago, that I don't think any one of us were in favor of this. And I distinctly remember turning to my colleague, to you, Mr. Kent, and said, you have my support. And I brought up the comment, my zone is Daytona Beach.
You did, and thank you very much.
Not a problem. Is Daytona Beach in that coastal area, the shores, Ponce Inlet, and I can only imagine this room would be filled with those residents if it was going in Daytona. And if it wasn't, or if it was, and I wasn't sitting up here, I too would be out there with you. So just so we're aware of that. Some other concerns, and just to, everybody is legitimately concerned with this, emotions fly, I get it. And you can yell at me all you want. Okay? I was a warden. Okay? You can tell me all the things in the world that you think, and I'm okay with it. So I've taken my fair share in my 30 plus years in corrections. So I appreciate the fact that you're here. I appreciate the fact that this is that democratic process right here. This is democracy. And I appreciate the fact that you're here. And we hear you. We absolutely hear you. Our staff hears you. So if you have concerns over the way, listen, I utilize tools. I'm a firm believer in utilizing tools. I apologize if I was looking at my computer, but I actually have the airport protection overlay zone that I'm bringing up. I'm trying to read at the same time. So I'm utilizing tools to try to learn, to be able to get my 5 minutes in, to be able to answer the questions. So I appreciate the fact that you're voicing your concerns, and I encourage you to continue to do so. And I'm going to yield my 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Wow. Thank you.
To me, thank you. Clay, before I start my 5 minutes, I have a question really following up on what Don and Matt both said about the steps involved. I know because this comes up all the time when we're looking at approval for a zoning change, which doesn't apply here, but for anything, that you have a set of rules and laws that you have to go by too. My concern is that if you go down that set of rules that you have to apply for, whether it be traffic, whether it be pollution, the airport overlay, I want this stopped. What is the chances of them qualifying on every one of those things, and then we hear again, our hands are tied?
Very straightforward. We have very specific criteria required. If they provide plans that comply with those criteria, then the staff has the duty to recommend approval of it to the Development Review Committee.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to come back to that as my final point, but there's two questions that I have that I still want an answer to, not because I want to go back and point fingers, but because I don't want this to happen again. We had 2 members of the public sit out there and say, we are very disappointed in you. And they should be disappointed in us if we knew about this, if there was anything that we could do. I want to know why we don't have standing because there was not a notification given to the county on a project that resides within our jurisdiction. If that happened, then number one, I find it hard to believe. Number two, I find it totally unacceptable. There can't be a notification process where it goes into the least red thing in Volusia County and we call it clear.
That is that is the state rules and the state Florida Administrative Code. We've taken a look at it. The state is not required to directly provide notice to the county, to the city for this type of permit.
You're kidding me.
We don't get that. That is the public notice. The portion is the publication in a newspaper of general circulation. That's the administrative rule under Chapter 62. That's not our rules.
Right. I understand.
So it's not our permit, it's the state's permit, and it's their notification procedures.
Okay. Then when I get to my last point about what can we actually do about this, I'm going to turn to David Santiago and say, help us with the Florida legislature to tell DEP this is a shortcoming in their code. I've read the code that you sent us, the law that you sent us. One thing leads to another. There's all kinds of things. It's just unimaginable that there's nothing that says for something of this magnitude that those people over there, George and his staff, aren't required to know about it. I mean, so it puts all of us in a bad position. So notification is one problem. The other one is that we know that the city of Ormond Beach staff heard this in June of 2022. How did that occur and us not know about it? Does Ormond Beach, did they not tell us that we're discussing this with Belvedere? It's your jurisdiction, it's your land. I mean, I know that our senior staff talks to city managers all over this county on a regular basis. This never came up?
To clarify the process, both from the city of Ormond Beach and from Volusia County, In Ormond Beach, they have an organization known as the Site Plan Review Committee. This is a group that when a developer or property owner has interest in doing something in their property, they can come in and basically make general requests and inquiries to determine whether or not they can proceed with what they want to do. We have a similar situation here. Ours is the technical review staff, and both parties were engaged. There was notice sent to Ormond Beach because they are the utility provider when we were asked if the zoning was going to be appropriate or if a rezoning would be required for this particular use. Conversely, Ormond Beach, through their technical staff, held a meeting, the Site Plan Review Committee. They reviewed whether or not it could connect to the water and sewer and if the annexation was required and could be done. Both of those meetings took place. I can tell you that we hold probably close to 400 of those meetings a year. Of those, many of those things don't come back for application. We're probably at about a 50% resubmittal. So just from a matter of regular standard operating procedures that everyone's staff is dealing with, until you actually see someone coming back, all you've asked or been asked is, can I do something and do I need to connect to water and sewer? Beyond that, we have no idea whether or not they were going to be pursuing any further actions. Here we are over a year and 2 months, and we still haven't received the application. We did obviously saw in the July 7th, 2023 Ormond Hometown News last week when this issue was brought up, the DEP notice, so obviously it's been identified. So now at this point, this is a development pending. We will make sure we are coordinating and making sure all of this is taken care of. And I can assure you from your staff's perspective, but the fact is even if we had notified you, going through and trying to change the zoning on them in mid-application, we still would have wound up in the same situation we have right here. There's a thing called the Burt Harris Property Rights Act. And so the fact is that both the city of Ormond Beach and Volusia County are aware of the potential for lawsuits. So that is why we're trying to be very specific in sticking to what are the requirements of the law so that that way we are acting within the existing regulations that we have, not acting arbitrary or capricious in our review of it to ensure that if it does comply with the permitting or the requirements, a site plan could be approved by the staff. Now, the DRC approvals could be appealed to the county council. And the short story made long for both parties is that we have to stick within the confines of your land development regulations, your land development process, and be adhering to it. Because the minute we deviate from those, we are in violation of that Burt Harris Act as well as other issues. I think Paolo could probably elaborate better on those. I'm just the planner, but I can tell you it has occurred previously to Volusia County, and it has recently occurred in New Smyrna Beach, where a developer came forward. That was even in the New Smyrna Beach situation. It was a public hearing. The elected officials of New Smyrna Beach denied the special exception for the borrow pit. They went to court, the city lost, the borrow pit's getting built, and the city's paying for the lawyer's fees. So we want to make sure that as we proceed from this point forward, we have a nice clean slate, and we're utilizing the regulations we have in place to ensure that their submittal complies. If it does not comply, then the DRC has a requirement to deny it. If it does comply, the DRC has a requirement to approve it. Having said that, affected parties can appeal that approval to you, where you will be able to review what was brought forward to the DRC and make your determination as policymakers to see if that was necessarily appropriate.
Okay, so what you just said was what you did know about it in June of 2022 because they came to you and asked about zoning. What I want to have happen out of this, you knew it was Belvedere.
I was not aware of this. This was not brought up by our staff. Just treated it as a regular.
Nobody on
request.
staff knew it was Belvedere.
No, my staff did not notify me that we have this potential project coming through. I was not aware, me personally. Other members of the staff that were in attendance sat down, met with them. We had our zoning enforcement officer, we had our land development manager, and 2 other staff members meeting with them to go over it.
I'm not trying to crucify your staff, but what I don't want to be blindsided again. And when we get 300 people show up to this and tell us that they're disappointed in us, ashamed of us, I want that obstacle removed. I want, if something of this magnitude comes before this county, even if we think this is really early, it may not ever happen, well, it did, and here it is, and things are proceeding. Still haven't had a permit yet, but I want to find a way that the council is at least informed. This is on the horizon, may not go anywhere, so that we can know about it and start taking steps in, because what I would have suggested at that point was, let's change the zoning. Let's change the zoning on that piece of property. And even now, I know what I hear, and I can hear it now, that we can't do that because Bert Harris, and we're going to get sued. Well, we've got some of the finest lawyers in Volusia County that fill one half of the 3rd floor. I would say let's use those lawyers to fight something like that for the people, and risk having to pay the legal expenses instead of risking their lives in their neighborhood. That's what we are here for. So I'm gonna ask the council. Troy, you mentioned several really good ideas that we could do. We need to come out of this meeting with some proactive steps, how we can stop this with. You said letters to the governor, letters to the delegation. I think we should send out a request to Belvedere to have a face-to-face conversation with them. So we have 3 other members that want to speak, but I hope that we'll get some motions of things that we can do right now. And I need to make this announcement before I call on David Santiago. The Bear Creek bus is leaving in 10 minutes, so if you're on that bus, please, and all of you, thank you. This is what America looks like. And your council heard you, and we will take action tonight to help you. If you have to leave, then stand up and leave. And with that, Councilman David Santiago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to make a motion in a moment. I wouldn't be myself unless I say what I think is compelled to say, because it's you know where I stand. I made it very clear, right? Where I stand on this issue. But our role is also to protect Volusia County on all levels, right? Including the health level. I'm very sensitive to that. And I'm with you from the perspective of I'd be fighting against this also, right? But there are realities that we have to deal with. If you remember my comment earlier, we have to be very tactical on the end game. And those guys there and those folks over there are going to help us be tactical. Because if we just spin off, as may have been, I'll just stop there. If we just spin off and don't do it the right way, what happens is we lose, and we still pay those attorneys' fees, and then we're still also held liable for additional millions. This is not somebody building a house. This is a multi-million dollar project. So please understand, we have to go about this smartly. I will not pander because I want to make sure you know my position, and we have to do it right. Okay? So it's very important, and I'm not trying to take away from what your emotions are, because I feel them. Mr. Chair, I move that we direct our staff to meet with state, federal, the property owners, additionally to investigate the public notice requirement that was fulfilled on this particular project. Also, our legal team to research case law that's similar to these types of projects and the outcomes and strategies, if potential. Also, to research if the county has any county-owned lands that may be more suitable for the property owner to relocate this property there. This project.
Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, you're going to have to keep that motion. We have a motion by David Santiago with a second by Troy Kent for staff to research state, federal, and the property owners. Go ahead and restate your thing, because you
I wrote
have
it
three
down.
different distinct parts to this.
I'll read it again if you like, Mr. Chair. To direct staff to meet with state, federal, and the property owners to discuss the project, to investigate the public notice process that was followed in this application with DEP, to also research case law on similar issues and how they've been dealt with and the outcomes, and to research the potential of any county-owned lands where we can direct this project and work with the property owner to relocate.
Okay, that's the motion on the table, seconded by Troy Kent. Is there discussion? I'm not going to forget everybody that's still on the board, but is there discussion just on that motion? Since I've got three names on there, just wave at me if you had discussion. You want to? George, go ahead.
In addition to the county-owned lands, I think it'd be appropriate to discuss with the railroad, the landowner, any lands that would be applicable, because county lands are limited, but there may be other lands that the railroad owns or would be available along the rail line, but not in that area.
Mr. Chair, with that said, I'll amend my own motion to include any land suitable in Volusia County for this purpose.
I think that's appropriate. Second still applies. Troy Kent.
Yes, but I just wanted to hear what Mr. Johansson was going to say.
Any land. Let's not limit it to Volusia County, because
Fair enough.
it might be right over the border.
That's
Any land.
Fair enough.
And I'm amendable to that as well. So my second still stands. Chairman, may I?
Please.
Before we vote on this, the only thing that I didn't hear in there, and George, maybe you don't need this as a motion, but one of the things I talked about was Clay, who you all know how I feel about Clay, to have Clay and his team review and make sure that our primary zonings are appropriate with the borders of all of our 16 cities in Volusia County and all of our neighbors, so that nonsense like this doesn't sneak up on us again. Do you need that tied into this?
I don't really need that as a motion.
Perfect.
I got that out of the opening statement.
Perfect.
Actually, we are already here reviewing it, so we'll be working on that project as well.
Thank you, George.
Any other discussion on the motion? Don?
The only other thing that, I just want to make sure it's clear on the record that, at least myself, I'm not here necessarily just to try and stop it just to stop it. I mean, my concern mostly is to make sure that the airport environment is not in danger, because I know, I believe, I know for one, I believe two experiences of departing. Probably the most dangerous time in flying general aviation is the first mile of takeoff. I mean, that's when your first power reduction on your plane occurs. That's the most likely time you're going to have an engine failure. And this appears, just from the map and spitballing it, it looks like this is right in the target of maybe a potential crash site. Because one of the most instinctive reactions people have is when they lose an engine, they try and turn back to the airport, and that's the worst thing you can do. Then you spin and you crash straight down. I mean, that's very common. And if this is in the general area of the first power reduction, and most instinctive students are going to just turn and want to go back to the airport, and that's when you lose lift and you fall straight down. And that's, I believe, what happened to two of these crashes here in DeLand over the years. So that's my concern. And so I'm not sitting here just saying I'm against fuel. I'm fully aware of Bert Harris. I'm fully aware of property rights to property owners. And I mean, this is the worst case scenario of property rights to neighbors, but I am concerned about the airport. And so I would ask maybe if we could amend your motion to make sure that staff also not only does the the research that you talked about, Dave, but also that they're researching the airport protection overlay zone and all the standards in there, because it does appear that this is in the airport overlay zone, and it appears that this is a safety concern in that zone. And I believe, just on my reading of this, is that might hopefully, well, it'll provide a basis if we feel this is a danger to the airport environment. So I'd ask that we amend it to be able to explore that as well.
Mr. Chair, I think he's allowing me to reply.
The motion maker wants to speak to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I think your points were very valid on that. You always come up with great points that are unexpected, so thank you for that. Let me first say that I think the motion, because of the fact that we don't have an application before us, vote yes or no. I know there's signs that say that vote no, but there's nothing really for us to vote on that perspective. But the motion itself is broad enough that it doesn't put us, in my opinion, in any Bert Harris challenges, because there's no application. It's saying investigate, go look into it. We heard the public. Let's have some dialogue. But your point, I think, would be covered when I said to meet with state, federal is FAA. I would expect that dialogue to happen in that directive, because they heard it.
Well,
Is that fair?
if I could, and George can jump in, I think what I heard discussed with the airport overlay zone, it's in your code. It's going to be part of your site planning process. Your staff is obligated to administer that. So I don't think they need that additional direction.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? If there's no other discussion, I'll ask for the vote on the motion to, it's a long motion, to discuss the project with state, federal, and property owners. Staff will research that, research the public notice process, and please, let's correct it. Case law, county-owned, or any other land anywhere else that might be an alternative. And then you said the airport overlay is included in that. So all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Jake Johansson, you're next.
Thank you. So, for Clay, a couple questions. Belvedere may never submit, correct? I mean,
I would say
they
that
may walk away whenever we
right
snap
now,
the
because
gavel.
they have contacted us about the traffic impact assessment methodology, I would say they're in the process of doing so. Typically, traffic impact assessments take 3 months to work through the methodology, and it's done prior to making submittal, because they cannot submit until they have that data for us. So when I hear that they are trying to schedule the methodology meeting, we can expect an application within the next 3 to 4 months.
Got it. My next question is, you've heard that we're concerned that DEP did this permit and we didn't know. And George, I'm not going to tell Clay what to do, but as part of this fact-finding mission, I noticed that on the DEP website, we can see all the Volusia County permits. Is there any other department in the state that can do this unbeknownst to us and catch us kind of on the defense besides DEP that we also need to add to our scan? And George, I'm sure we already now have it on our scan, but can we keep all those things on our scan?
I would say that would be all of them.
Yeah.
All the state departments.
All the departments, right?
If they have to take an action, and the state statute or the Florida Administrative Code requires some kind of notice, unless the Administrative Code says you need to directly notify the county, which we do for example, sites that need cleanup to do a fuel spill.
Yep.
We directly get those notices. I directly get those notices, and I distribute it out. Some other actions by the state do not require direct notice to the county. It's just a publication in a newspaper of general circulation.
And how hard is it to scan every department's? I mean, I found it pretty easy on the DEP site, but
I mean, there's a.
Is it overwhelming, or can we do it once a week?
We can do that. Well, we can try to follow up what's happening in Volusia County, the state permits.
Yeah, between Mike and I will work together, between our staffs, to come up with a plan on how to do it, the frequency of doing it.
I mean, we would only caught this in March, but we would have been 3 months ahead of the game,
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly. We could, we'll look at that. Again, the amount of things happening has vastly increased. So that's another factor, but we will dedicate what it takes to, and come up with, like I say, a timely method of doing it, on scanning it once a month, week. We'll come up with what the frequency should be, and that way we'll have another check to make sure that we'll be more proactive rather than reactive.
Got it. And I know that we will also look, that this whole hometown news hometown news thing really bothers me, because for years, that's all I wanted to do. I now want to, Mike Dyer, move forward quickly. You heard people are willing to spend a little bit of money to make things like this stop happening again. I think the notice on a website, ours, that's sponsored, and cities can join in if they want to in Volusia County, I think that's something we need to look at. It may not have prevented this, but it would have given us a little more situational awareness, I think. So I'm now more motivated.
Yeah, just so you know, because it was something that was on the council direction list. Paulo has actually been working on that. Ryan Osowski working with departments to get information, because we're trying to drill down on the types of notices they do. So it's well in progress.
Thank you.
There are still a few notices that are required by statute that would still have to go, like things like the budget.
Right.
Would still have to be in the paper with the widest circular.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Vice Chair Robbins.
Thanks, Chair. Jake, you took the words out of my mouth when to monitor some of these other state agencies here, and it makes sense to do that. And there's nothing that is worse than being caught flat-footed and blind. But if we can get ahead of it, and I'll express my support for his idea and several others, we can get ahead of it and get this information out, I think would be in much better shape. Also, to council, can we consider, or legal, is there a local, or is there any options to make a local ordinance? Now, I know we can't direct state to do anything, and they're going to go out to beat their own drum, but I feel the same way. I don't like hearing about this stuff next to, on page 82, next to the romance section. I just don't agree with that at one bit. Now, through our monitoring process, George, if we come up with a plan, is there any way that we can put that out on our websites?
Well, that's what we're talking. We're pretty open. We have Connect Live. People can and do look at what they can pull up any address, see what's going on.
Active
so
permits.
I think there's a way we can add this kind of information, a link or what. We'll figure out the best way to do that. But I also think that that's for the public. And then I know what you're requesting too is, well, for management also to be made aware of what's going on through this also process, so we don't have what we've experienced here.
And to give a little credit to Ormond Beach, and I saw it in several other municipalities, where they have a briefing or a newsletter that goes out to the chair, the mayor, and council, where it gives a quick update on open permits, where they're at, what they're about, and all that becomes public record as well. I want as many platforms like y'all where we can monitor this stuff, whether it be Facebook, our social media pages, Instagram, all this stuff that folks use. I don't know about Jake. He's still working on the internet. But whatever we can do, I think there's consensus up here to do whatever we can. So thank you.
Okay. Let me follow up, if I could, just with that. This notification didn't come from the county, did it? It came from the state DEP.
Right, so that's.
We can't control that.
Right. We'll look at how we can maybe monitor their websites.
Good.
That's basically, I think, what they're asking is how do we scan their stuff, and then create our own report of what's out there for the state.
Let's find out. Councilman Kent.
Thank you, Chairman. Just briefly to kind of close this out. My belief is that this county, Volusia County and Ormond Beach, and basically every other city as well, have some of the best relationships with city, county government that I've ever seen. And I credit that to this council and to those cities. And Ormond Beach is here, a couple representatives. The mayor's parents are in the audience. And I know that, you know, the other elected officials from Ormond are listening online, Commissioner Persis, Mayor Partington, and Harold Briley. I don't think this needs to be a motion, but maybe just a thumbs up from us to staff. We're on the same page with Ormond Beach on this. Staff, George and Mike. George, I want you to work with Joyce Shanahan and her team on this because there's a common goal.
Right.
And Mike, I want you to work with Randy Hayes and his team on this because of the common goal. So I was just hopeful that we could give a thumbs up if we're in agreement with that so that they know it's okay to work with them for this common goal and try to get across the finish line what we want to get done.
Yeah, you get a thumbs up for me. I asked Mr. Sargent tonight if he could verify if the three things the city of Ormond Beach said they were going to do had been done, and he was able to verify that those things had been done. So, okay. Troy, did you want to go back again? Okay. Anything else from staff? Then we have a list of things that were just approved by the council to work on your behalf to try and bring this to a resolution, whether it be moved or stopped. Like I said before, this council has heard you. What you did tonight was I've never seen happen in this chamber. You filled not only this room, but 2 rooms downstairs. You were extremely respectful given the circumstances. And I just want to know, I'm sure the rest of the council agrees with me. We appreciate what you have done, and we will go to work for you. We can't go to work for you when we don't know about something. Now it's all out on the table, and there's things that we can do, and we will do them. And if there is no other comments from council or staff, I will call this meeting adjourned at 8:36.
Shoot, I forgot to ask.